Everybody, we are live again. It's Sunday with the Game Dev Show. I got Andrew, David, Yorai, and Jason, and myself, Jason, here. We're going to be talking about game development, Black Friday stuff, Cyber Monday stuff, code that we both wrote over the week, me and Dave, and we're going to be giving away some cool stuff, at least giving away one writer license. If you want to win that, by the way, make sure that you check the description down below. There's a link you can go enter right now, and we'll give it away throughout the show. We'll talk a bit more about that in just a few minutes, though. And then we're also going to talk about, I don't know if I mentioned this already, jobs. I think I might have said that, but if not, then we'll talk about that as well. So thanks everybody for coming out. Welcome everybody who's here in chat. Please hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. Go drop the link up on Facebook or whatever. And I guess we'll get started. So hey guys.
Hi. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm good. Tired, but good. So actually let's start real quick with Yorai had some exciting news. While we're on talking about deals, you had a deal for Terraria, right? That's live right now.
Yeah, so Terraria is 50% off right now, both for the Don't Starve crossover update and the Steam Autumn sale. So please have fun with that if you ever plan to pick it up. There's also a 4-pack that's 50% off.
If you haven't picked it up yet, you probably should. I don't know many people that don't have it, but if you don't have it, now's the perfect time because you can get a 4-pack and then share it with friends and stuff, right?
Yeah. And the update was a lot of fun, and we even got to make some cool shirts out of it, so...
Yeah, that was cool. You want to tell everybody what that update was a little bit, who hasn't watched the last episode, or I guess it was the one before that where we talked a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Terraria existed for a while now, and we had our essentially last update for the game, Journey's End. And after that, we decided to have an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. And when we did that, one question was, what other games would you have liked to work with? And Senex, a person in our company, said that she'd love working on Dirt Starve together. And Play, the company for Don't Starve, reached out to us, and essentially this crossover update came to be, and we worked on it for some months, and it was a ton of fun to work with another company, and ideas were overflowing, and we kept having nice offs where we were like, oh, we can do this and we can do that, and it was hilarious. And the update just came out on Thursday 2 weeks ago. Do we say 2 weeks? Last week? I'm getting confused, but it was on the 18th, and the update is out now, and there is a special seed with different shader, new mechanics. It's a ton of fun. I think. I hope you enjoy it.
Nice.
Imposter syndrome is real.
Cool. And real quick, I guess before we dive into other things, Andrew, did you have any more Black Friday Lightning deals coming up for your Infinity
Oh my
DVR stuff?
gosh, yes. So I mean, there's 6 that are currently 70% off. Actually, one's 80% off. The rest are 70% off, including all the monster bundles, which really makes them whatever 30% plus 70% off that. So do the math? They're more than 70% off if you include the fact that they're 4 packs in one and they're already discounted. But also, our weapons and armor pack 2 is on sale, and the at 70% off, and the goblins just went on, and then elves and half orcs are both 70% off as well. And there's a little bit of a hack. If you those goblins, the weapons, elf, and the half orcs, they're all part of the RPG character complete bundle, which is currently 50% off. So if you happen to want everything, that's probably the better deal in the end. But if you get one of the ones at 70% off, later you could always upgrade for a discount. It wouldn't be 50% off. That's a little bit of a hack if you ever upgrade to the RPG character complete. But yeah, there's a lot of things on sale. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, there's just a ton. Like I keep saying, you just make me inspired to want to make an RPG. Just like I no
Yeah.
longer have to worry about I can't afford artists and make levels. Like I can just take Andrew's art and Andrew's levels.
Yep.
Gotta
Yep.
make the
I've
gameplay.
gotten at least three different people during this sale period ask me how much a custom character would be, and when I tell them $6,000 plus, they all stop talking to me. And I don't like that seems like a reasonable amount it's not that's actually a decent price for a full character. And people I think they expect that somehow we make these for like $800 or something and then call it a day. And anyways, but yeah, so don't go custom when you're making prototypes and when you're working on your project. Go with the asset store, and when you have money coming in, you're successfully kickstarted, you've gone viral, all that stuff, then pay $6,000 plus per character for custom unique
Or
characters.
have an artist in house or something. Yeah, you gotta do something there. I actually have that character that I've been talking to you about, Andrew, is just getting started, and it's right around that price. So you'll get to show
Yep.
everybody kind of what that process is like and talk about it.
What's worse is if I bet you if you polled the majority of people who use Unity how much they think a model would cost, even your like joke low estimate is too high. I guarantee you most people think it's 80 to 200. I guarantee it.
I mean, you could get stuff for that low from people in low cost countries, but it's probably going to be crap, and you're not going to be happy with it in the end, and there's not going to be a chance of revision. It might also be stolen.
It's
Yeah,
most likely
it
going to be
depends a lot.
those character creator models. You know where you use one of the poser tools and they just spit out the model from it and then rough it up a bit in in something like ZBrush. That's what you probably end up getting.
You're essentially gambling when you pay for something very low cost from someone who didn't have a portfolio of making these before. But there is one thing that I've seen that kind of maybe works sometimes is if you don't mind other people using the character that you want made, you can try and ask the maker whether they like make it at a certain discount, and then they can just publish it as an asset. Because, for example, we make the game on the Unity Asset Store makes a bunch of animation assets, like a whole animation set for great swords, hammers, swords and guns, two swords, swords but reversed, and people make requests all the time, and they end up making the kits. So you want that, you essentially get it for the cheaper price, but everyone can get the exact same animations, so it's not unique to you anymore. If you care about that, then I guess it's not an option, but if you don't, it's a great one.
I've done that myself for a bunch of character models, generally like the low poly ones, and that's something else that's worth noting. The lower poly models, like if you want to get a just like the more synthy looking style, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Those ones tend to be way cheaper. Like they're not nearly as pricey as like the ones that we're talking about with Andrew. We're looking at full HD, good, high quality characters that are customizable and stuff. And I've even found some good artists online on Upwork and Fiverr who can make things. It's just kind of comes down to reliability and whether or not you're going to be able to have them consistently make things. And it's not easy to find people who are making good things and aren't pirating things and other stuff like you mentioned. So usually once people get good at it, and they start to raise their rates like anybody else. So I guess before I don't know what I want to jump into next, but I want to mention the writer giveaway again real quick so that everybody who's watching now just has a chance. Go look down in the description of the YouTube video. You'll be able to see. You can go sign up and just enter to win. We're going to give away a copy of Writer sometime throughout the show today. And I wanted to do it in either one of two ways. So earlier this week, I think it was Friday, I did a live stream where I showed a little app that I built that kind of does an auto battle. So you put in a bunch of names and it battles them out. It was something that I built in the middle of the night in bed because I was just kind of needing to code and it was quiet for a little while. I started playing around with it. But then Dave mentioned, like right when I went streaming, I don't know if you noticed that I was streaming when you sent me that email. You sent me the email like when I started streaming and I looked and I'm like, oh, Dave told me he just built the same thing with monkeys with guns. It's like with monkeys with guns. I was like, oh, what the hell? So I wanted to talk to you about that and see which one we should use to give away the writer code today. Oh, you're silent,
You're
Dave.
muted.
See, I told you we were fixing Dave's mic earlier. It broke again. He's still broken.
Yeah.
I'll give him a second.
Maybe
But
it's
yeah,
just he
mine.
pushed the mute button on the screen and he didn't
From
realize
monkeys with guns to monkeys with typewriters, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
I was looking at using your characters too, Andrew, for the battler. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna use these ones, and then I remembered that I just bought some cute little monsters ones. I was like, this is way smaller, and I was on my laptop, and it was gonna take a long time to import. I was like, okay, I grabbed the small one. That's the only thing that that made me go with those characters instead of yours, though. Was just the file size, and my laptop was
Is
out of
it
hard
back
drive
on?
space.
Cute monsters
Is it
are
back?
cute too. So yes,
We
you're
can
back.
hear you. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
and they
There we
were
go.
cute and funny. We'll show everybody in a few minutes. Anyway, Dave, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Obviously, when I don't talk long enough, it switches off. Yeah, no, it's what after what we were doing last Sunday and you changing the text, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just knock that together. So I spent a few hours and just took the Monkeys with Guns game. For anybody that doesn't know, that's a game produced by a guy called Wim Lark. It's this little 2D platformer that I was a massive fan of, and then I just gave him a call and said, I want to build it with you, and then ended up building it out. And I took that game and just said, right, if I had a names list, could I just throw these names onto it and have it basically show the names and they could find it out on screen? And I enabled it to do 4, 8, 16, or 32 players, or any number under that amount of players. Any others on top of that, it just cuts them off.
Oh, it just cuts out if you get more players than that?
If you put 100 in that game, it's an absolute... Well, it's just a cluster. You barely see anything. They all just kill each other really quickly. So I basically have it that it shuffles the names at the very start, and then it selects however many you want to go to the maximum, and then just allows those to come in. So it's sort of a first round cutoff. And if you make the first round cutoff, then it basically takes you into the game. Because I needed it to be very quick as well. I wanted like a 30-second game tournament. So yeah, I kept it to that.
Okay. So you get insta eliminated.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. How hard was that to build? Or like to change? Was it relatively
not
simple?
hard? The AI was already done, and I already had a direct play system in there for testing the levels anyway. So what we do is when Nick actually creates the level, to make sure it runs okay and to see what sort of bricks get blown up first and where monkeys start to fall down and if the crates are in the right position, we'll just throw off AI into the level and just let AI fight it out just to see how the level plays. So I already had that system in place. It's more just enabling it to pull from a names list and chuck the names above the characters, and then some tweaking to the menu to have it as an AI tournament. So yeah, not a lot of work really. I mean, 3 hours to get it done and dusted. Yeah, it's tidy.
Nice.
And how do you get the names list?
The names list is just a text file that sits next to the exe. And then I just literally pull it in and do a little bit of parsing on it so I can have it comma separated, or it could be line separated or colon separated. And I just look for those and then pull those out, and then shuffle those names up and then chuck them in. It's really, really simple, because I wanted to see if it was going to work well. I wanted to see if people liked it. I tried it out for the first time the other day, and people seem to like it. And it's going to go on Nick's channel, and he's going to start using it. That's Wim Lark's channel. And if people like it, then I'll start doing some integrations and have it a lot easier to use. But I'm a big component of, with these sort of things, get things out quick. Get them out quick, get them tested, see if people like it. If people like it and it's fun, then you've got something there that you can go forwards with. And if I put it out there and people are like, then I'd can it and move on to the other thing. And this is a very quick little thing just to test. So
Rapid iteration and feedback is great.
yeah.
We've got 41 entries so far, so we'll see how many we end up with before we end up dropping them into one of our battlers.
Now, is it a rule that you have to click the like button and subscribe in order to enter, or is that just we can't enforce that?
I don't think we're allowed to make that a rule, but it's definitely a recommendation.
Strong recommendation.
If you're already there looking for the link, you may as well hit the like button and subscribe while you're in there. So yeah, I think maybe we'll jump into those in just a little bit. Maybe give people a little bit of time to enter, and then go through and pick some winners. Maybe we can run through one of each or something. Do 2 giveaways. That'd be fun. All right. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that I think you missed out on this, Dave, we were talking about it a little bit before you jumped in on the call, was getting jobs. And I guess, getting discouraged from getting jobs. Is I had a discussion with someone yesterday about jobs and applying on Indeed specifically, and not hearing anything back and just kind of getting a little bit discouraged. And as soon as I heard that, well, I'd heard about the getting discouraged stuff, and when I asked and heard about Indeed, instantly the thing that popped into my head was all of the times that I've looked on there at jobs that I know don't exist anymore because I already shut those companies down, but the post is still there years and years later that people are still applying to. I just went and searched for one of them. Luckily, it's gone, but it was there last year, and it was a job from 2015. It shows that stuff is not. If you're just applying for jobs on websites like that and not really diving into it, I think it's really easy to get discouraged. I think a lot of people they just kind of send out a couple resumes. They spend a lot of time building up their resume or CV. They send it out to a couple online websites. They don't hear anything back, and then they just get totally discouraged and kind of get complacent and don't kind of push for the job or position that they want. And I know you guys haven't all had to do that, but like personally, like in my jobs, almost all of them, like I applied many times. Like before I started working at Sony, I think I applied there like 3 or 4 times throughout the years. When I had like no qualifications at all, I just like to play their games. I was like, I'm gonna apply, see if I can get a job. Didn't get the job, and it wasn't until like the third, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th time that I finally got hired there. Not all the jobs were like that. Like Intel was, easy, one and done. But a lot of the time, like it just takes effort and like persistence to get into the positions and do the things that you want to do. And I feel like a lot of people are just going to get discouraged or give up or don't realize that persistence is what matters. And one of the other things that kind of really brought this to my mind was me thinking about like when people email me, right? Sometimes people email me with this like great idea, opportunity, or question or thing that like I can easily help them with. But I happen to be at the pool with a toddler. So I kind of look at it and totally forget about it, don't see it again. But some of them are persistent and they'll email me again next week. And they'll email me again next week. And then I realize like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to talk to this person, wanting to reply, but I've just been busy and like I get distracted and can't do it. And then eventually those things I've had them turn into like people that I've hired or students that have signed up and done other things with, or a couple other situations that I probably shouldn't dive into too much publicly. But there have been really good opportunities just from people being relatively consistent and just not giving up just because they don't hear back the first time. Especially if you don't hear back. If you hear like a no the first time and you get rejected from the place, like I still wouldn't just give up. And still, like give a little bit more effort. Tell them thanks for their stuff. Thank you for their feedback. If they have any advice, you'd love to hear it. And here's what you would do differently next time. Maybe that'll help push you through. I've seen it work. But overall, you gotta just not give up, I guess, is kind of the key part of it. And I just really wanted to get everybody else's thoughts and opinions on the topic too, though. See if I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy rambling old. I don't know.
Absolutely not.
I think persistence is key. Going like I a long time ago I joined a dating website like 15 years ago, and I quickly canceled because I think it was eHarmony or some crap like that. I was just bored and lonely and thought, let me try this out. A month later I canceled, but they kept my profile up and I kept getting people messaging me, and I'm like, hey, I canceled. Why are you still showing my picture to people? And it got me thinking, how many people on that website have already canceled, but they just keep you up because their goal is to show as many people as possible to get more subscribers. And so Indeed and other sites like it, they really want to show, hey, look, we have thousands of jobs. Come here, come here, come here. Because they have to start that cycle, because the more applicants they have, the more jobs they'll get, and vice versa. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is going to be full of just stuff that doesn't actually exist, fake jobs. But there are real jobs out there. And I think, casting a wide net when you're looking for a job makes a lot of sense, because well, you're looking for a job. And if you really want to get a job and you're not super picky about where, then cast a wide net. However, when you get to that pickiness, and Jason with Sony, if there's a company that you want to work for, apply for that company. Like, think about what you want to, where you want to work, what you want to do. Apply for the jobs that you're unqualified for, and even tell them up front. For the job I currently have, I told them I was not qualified for it, but I had unique experiences, and they agreed with me and gave me a job because I wasn't qualified for what they were looking for, but they were looking for me. They just didn't know it yet. And after a short conversation, they created a job just for me based on my experiences. And I would not have gotten that job if I hadn't reached out and said, hey, here I am. So I got lucky because I didn't need to do any back and forth. It was quite lucky. But if I hadn't gotten that job at the company, I probably would have applied again a month later and 2 months later because I wanted to work there. It was local. It was with what I was interested in and all that stuff. So persistence is key, and not being discouraged because you'll get rejected all the time. You know.
Oh yeah, I've been rejected
Yeah.
from tons and tons of jobs. So I just keep applying.
You know, you reminded me that when I actually initially got into Relogic, where I work now, they actually tried to hire me as an artist, a Pixar artist, instead of a programmer. So that was an experience. But hey, I ended up here, so happy. One tip I'll give before you try to get the job you want at a company that you like, try other ones first, because at least you'll get experience at improving for the interviewing process, which is crucial so you don't fumble on the one thing that you actually care about. Power leveling and stuff.
Yeah.
If you find a job on Indeed, find the company that's posted the job, and then go and apply on their site if you can possibly do it. Because Indeed leaves stuff up. People don't always check Indeed once they've got enough applicants. But if you're
And check
applying
their careers
directly,
page,
it goes in.
the website of whatever company you're talking about. That way you'll know. You might find 20 jobs listed for that one company on Indeed, but there's only 2 listed on their own careers page on their own website.
Or you
And
might
if they
just
don't
find the
have a
newer jobs listed there.
And if they don't have a careers page, try checking their business inquiries, because there is always a way to get in and ask, hey, do you have a job for me?
Look them up on LinkedIn as well. It doesn't hurt to connect with somebody on LinkedIn from the company. That will never hurt your chances. The other thing
regarding
is
this
always...
topic, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, always be asking for feedback. So if you get a rejection letter at any point, if it's after you've sent in your resume, after you've had an interview, your second interview, your third interview, or something like that, always be asking for feedback. Okay, you didn't accept me this time. Why didn't you accept me? What am I doing wrong? Do I have to change something in my resume? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something I missed in the tests, etc., when you're actually doing the interview? And that feedback will help you gain knowledge for the next interview, for the next time you apply, etc. So
Also
make
makes you
sure
look
you
good.
get in that. Yeah, it makes you look good. And also, sometimes it might be a case of, oh, well, you didn't have this particular skill listed on your resume. And you might have that skill. You didn't put it on your resume and somebody else did and they liked that. So you can turn around and go, oh, no, I've got 4 years of working in Maya. I've got 5 years of doing this in Blender. And they will look at you again and possibly take you on. So it doesn't hurt to ask for feedback. Sometimes you'll apply and you won't get anything back, and that's an awkward one when you're applying for a job and you're just seeing nothing there. And if you keep applying and you keep getting nothing back, take a second to look at your resume. Take a second to look at your portfolio. Is there something you're missing? Is there something that stands out to you and says, I wouldn't employ this person, or I'm not showing my best side when I'm going to these? Take a look at the templates online for resumes. Is my resume just a mess? Am I sending in 10 pages or am I sending in 1? Really take a harsh look at yourself and say, would I employ me just from this? Is this showing my best side?
So on this topic in general, I've made my opinions pretty clear before that people are going to give you advice from their own sphere of experience. Some people here worked at AAA places, some people here haven't. Some people worked for themselves or in small countries or in big countries. You're going to get very different responses. My one advice has always been, regardless of whether you're trying to work anywhere, it's a dice roll. And you don't know if you're going to get it. Other people could apply. The only thing you can control is how many dice you roll. So favor the odds in your favor in every scenario. And that's not just about number of applications you make, but there are ways to make yourself the best possible candidate you can. And to put things in perspective, I've been offered jobs in the last 2 years that I would have jumped at 6 years ago. I would have been like begging for. But now I'm in a position I can turn them down. And that comes from, and to make it weirder, I don't apply for jobs. I haven't applied for a job in 12 years or so. Jobs come to me. And I'm not doing anything particularly drastic to put myself in that, lucky position. It's just I weighted the odds in my favor, which is that the best qualified candidate's not the one that's going to get the job 90% of the time. That's just impractical and unlikely. It's the person who's most suited for the job from the interview. And that tends to be the person who's the right mix of likable and skilled. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to be the most likable. You need to hit somewhere in the middle where you have the skills they need and people would want to work with you. And they're skills you can learn by just reading some books and taking some courses. If you want to be in a good position, it doesn't matter what job you want. Get a Pluralsight account, read how to win friends and influence people, be somebody that someone would think, hey, I want to work with that person, and jobs will come to you. That's basically it. I think everything else after that is secondary. I think just be a good candidate, and you'll be surprised how much that suits you going forward.
There's also doing your due diligence and making sure that if you send a bazillion resumes, at least make sure they're up to par and not just a bazillion bad ones. Like you can go on Google, type how to resume, and start reading everything you're doing wrong, everything you're doing right. Compare that against yours, make like 10 iterations, ask your best friends and also some strangers that you don't mind showing that to, if they can invest the time, because people who are close to you might be too gentle on you and won't let you have honest feedback of the resume. But once you have an actual valid and curated one for the employer that you're trying to get the job with, then you should send it. And like Dave said, if you didn't include anything and they said we didn't hire you because of that, say, oh, I do have that resume, but I didn't include it because I didn't think it would be relevant for this job. And that would be give some credence and not like you're making things up, because I've seen more than enough people who say they have experience with Blender after making like one tiny model and said, oh no, I worked with Blender. So make sure that you give a proper reason on why you don't do things or do things a certain way.
Another small piece of advice is make sure you're doing the basics well. All your links should be links. All your links should go to active sites or active emails. As the number of resumes I get and the email's wrong. Then I've had people spell their names wrong. Just got to make sure that you're getting this thing really tidy, that everything's really nicely done. If you send me a PDF and you've put 25 links in that PDF, I want to just be able to click those links and go to that site. Because when you're doing that first pass as an employer, the first thing you're doing, and it sounds harsh, is you're just trying to get rid of people. You're trying to cull the herd, because you will not be able to interview 40 people for this position. You'll want to interview the top 10. You'll want to interview less. So you're trying to cull the herd, pick out the best ones and move forwards. And if you have to spend an absolute age going in, picking out the links, fixing those links, as an employer, you're going to be annoyed by that, and you might get overlooked for that simple thing. So really try and make sure all your links work in your PDF. Make sure your portfolio is up to date and things like that. And also, when you look at a job online and you get the job description, go through it and see what they're mentioning, and then make sure that either in your cover letter or your resume, you're mentioning those things. If you have them, obviously don't. That's Yuri said, don't put them in there if you don't have them, because you'll be found out really quickly, and that looks worse for you. But if you've got that Maya experience and it's not in your resume, but it's on the Unity job page or the page that you're picking up, get it in there. Make sure it's in your resume somewhere, because sometimes
I'd even go one step further. I'd say, to be really coy, if you don't have the experience for the 3D modeling tool that they want, but you have other 3D modeling experience, I would flat out call it out and say, I've worked with this tool. I haven't used that one before. I looked up some tutorials just now. Seems pretty similar. I'm sure I could pick it up in a month. That like assuades any fears that you can't use the tools that they want you to use. That sounds confident, and it indicates I will put the work in to get to the place you need me to be.
And can-do
Yeah, I
attitude
mean-
is really something you really want out of people
Yeah.
that you're going to hire. Go ahead.
If you're doing 3D Studio Max and they're asking for Maya, you'd be a fool not to mention, oh well, I had a look and I could do it, because you could. It's not that hard to switch between the two. You'll have a bit of a learning curve to start off with, just to find where the buttons are on the shortcuts and everything else. But within no time, you'll be up and running. It's the same if they're telling you to use a particular asset management system. Okay, they're asking for Perforce, but I've got Git. Well, I've got all this asset management experience. I can use that. I've looked at Perforce through the YouTube videos, as Jason was just saying. I can easily take that on and do that, because sometimes your resume will go to an HR person before it even gets to the hiring manager. And that HR person is literally ticking boxes. Have they got
looking for
these things
keywords,
in their
yeah.
resume? Yeah. Tick, 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 tick. Especially when I was in AAA and I was hiring for Sony, the amount of resumes we would get in was too much for me even to go through. So the HR department would take those and cut those down before it even reached me as the hiring manager.
And keep in mind, they often have no technical ability. Like they're literally. I'm not being funny when I say they're looking for keywords. I've had CVs come in because they have JavaScript on them when the job was for Java, because the person scanning the things was reading the letters JAVA and was passing anything that had that in it through, and anything that didn't out. Like, so sometimes there's a really harsh culling phase at the start. So it can literally come down to, did you have those letters in your resume? And even if it's just, I don't know how to blank, but I would learn, it's like that could be the thing that puts you through that first phase.
And you would tell everybody where they can find those words?
What?
Where they can find the words that they're searching for on there? Because they're almost always on the job description, right?
Yeah. They're all on the job
description. Just got to go copy them straight off the job description, the ones that match.
And so remember, there's multiple sections. It's not just
I'm
the ones
applying for the job, and then copy in the description. Copy paste, just like any quality email spam.
And also always check the nice to have as well, because they'll always have the we need these. Then they'll have other sections for it would be cool if you also had these. And yeah, try to get as many of those in as well, because sometimes you'll forget that like they've actually added an entire second set of other things that you might have experienced in.
And here's a bit more niche related advice. Make sure that whatever you write, even if you don't know and you're trying to be confident, be respectful when you do it, because I've seen some outlying resumes that had curses and joke non-respectful things. And even if you go past it and say, well, they have the skill and they're obviously just joking here, some would look at it as like, it's not professional if he's representing the company. I wouldn't like him to do that. And sometimes I had one person whose resume had the top link, the front one, his homepage had something is my shit. And I was like, how do I show this to the CEO of the company and say, we want him?
And this is something that people get wrong as well. They think that, oh, you're being puritanical, or you're saying that you want very clean, whatever. But here's something people have to be really clear about. It's not about your sense of humor. Like, I have a particularly dark sense of humor, and if I was working with people long enough, they would certainly know about it. But the difference is, it's not about hiding who you are. It's about, does this person understand that there's scopes, that there's different environments you have to be in and work in, and you have to work possibly with clients and other people. So it's not about not being yourself. It's about the person who's reading that resume is going to say, if they don't understand how to separate their personality for business purposes here, what might they do in a scenario later that's much worse? So it's more important than you think it is to be putting a professional face on things. If you want to be yourself, do that in the interview. And I'd highly actually recommend being yourself, because realistically you'll get in trouble later if you try to hide too much of who you are and then things go wrong later. But when it comes to a resume, it's supposed to be professional. And that's not about being a stick in the mud. It's about saying, does this person know what it's like to be professional? And that's a very valuable check mark for a lot of people hiring.
Yeah, and keep in mind that no matter what your job is, essentially you're going to, at some point at the company, work with other people. And this is when those skills of separation between the personal and the professional ones come in. So you will be validated on this regardless of what job you ever pick. Make sure you know that.
I was
And
just thinking a few years ago, I was involved in hiring someone that ended up being on our team, and it took a long time. We had an HR department that would, or not, I guess, a recruiting department that would, get rid of a lot of resumes, perhaps. But the reality was, we weren't getting applicants. That we had a job up that I would have thought would have gotten lots of applicants, but we would get like one a week that would get through. And I don't think it was the recruiters just saying no to everybody, but rather it was just people weren't applying. And it made me think, it wasn't a programming job, wasn't something like that, but still, why aren't people applying? And maybe there's times where there's just not that many applicants. In fact, there's one person on our team right now that the rumor is they were the only applicant, and that's why they got the job. So we'll see. I don't know about how true that is, but it's within the realm of reason.
well,
As
oddly
long as
enough,
we're
that happens a
talking-
lot in graduate positions because there's an arms race going on where people who are writing job requests always ask for more features than they want so that they can call out people who don't have enough experience, and then people who are applying for jobs are always padding up their resume that take every time they ever met another human being and says it's work experience, and so you've got this constant ridiculous like back and forth where it's kind of yeah. So what ends up happening is a lot of people who are well aware their resume is quite frankly bullshit is going to be too shy to apply because they're seeing what looks like very stringent, you need these 10 technologies, and the truth is there's as much needle pushing on the job description as there is on your resume when you're posting it. So it's worth, yes, be honest with what skills you have, but again, this is where the googling bit comes in. I've applied for jobs where like a week before I applied, I just spent a couple of days on Google and I found out intro tutorials on 3 or 4 of the top listed things and said, could I pick these up in a week or two? And honestly, most of them are just like if someone says to you, do you have asset management experience? And you don't know what the hell that means. And you Google it, it just means I press the button that says commit on Git sometimes using an editor. Like you'd be surprised how much of this stuff isn't a deal breaker. And if you're too afraid to apply because you think there's too many things required, look into it first, and you'd be surprised how a lot of the stuff, the information is out there. And if you can go in with at least some understanding, yeah, there'll be more resumes, and most likely you won't have to do all of the things. They want all of the things, but if you don't match everything, you might still be a good enough candidate. They're willing to teach you the rest on spec.
Yeah, I
And
actually had a job that I saw for a friend that they didn't want to accept him because they couldn't afford to give him the work experience, like to teach him the tools he didn't know. And I was like, you can learn that in 2 days. Here, let me help you. And he tried to apply again, and they were like, oh, you actually didn't know that? Sure, we'll hire you. And it was a very funny experience.
And a point to people that are employers out there, so the opposite way around, throwing it on its head. If you don't have experience in the job you are putting out there for, so let's say you're a brand new startup and you're a CFO or a CEO or anything, and you're about to hire your first dev, when you do your job description, just reach out to somebody and get it checked, because so many jobs are technically impossible. Do you have this many years using this tool when that tool has been out for 5 less years than you're asking for? Or do you have this? Or they'll ask the world, and there's like 3 people in the world that can do all of the stuff.
It's a sad sight that there's more than one case on the internet of a creator of some library being denied for a job at that company for that library because they don't have enough years experience because it's only been created less than the years they asked for.
Yeah.
There's more than one case of this online. That's how ridiculous this gets.
Yeah. So on the flip side, if you're an employer, get your job descriptions checked. And also, if you're a hiring manager and you have an HR department, double check the thing that gets put up. Because I've even felt foul to the point where an HR person sat down with me and I've gone through all the details of the jobs that I currently want to hire for a team. And then they've gone away and accidentally put something across. So something in an artist has gone into a programmer slot. And so you want to double check that sort of thing as well. Make sure every job description you put up there, because it looks bad on the company. If you're asking for an artist and you're saying we need 10 years C# experience, then you're going to look a little bit crazy. Or we need all this C and C++ experience for our producer. It's like, well, why are you doing that? So double check the stuff that's going up, because you want to look good as an employer as well.
And actually, on that note, there's something else that, again, I don't know if everyone else does this, but whenever I do get a resume or whatever, or a job offer kind of across my table, I will look for certain things. Like, I know it may sound silly to a lot of people who don't fill these in, but if I see a job listing and it doesn't mention any kind of source control, that tells me there's a culture in the company where they don't either think about or know much about source control, and I don't want to work there. So, like, it can be a very big deal, but just literally saying, like, have some, like, if they're saying as a job request, must have some minimum of Git understanding. I'm like, okay, they at least know what that is, right? Because I have unironically been, because I do consulting. It's not really full job per se, but I'll be brought in for a while to work on stuff, and it's very glaringly noticeable to me when a company like doesn't use source control at all, and that's such a red flag to me as a someone who wants to work somewhere.
It's one
And
of
if
the
we're
first
going
things I
on,
ask about in interviews is what source control they use in the company. As soon as they let me ask questions like, what do you use for source control? I think it adds a little credibility, and I want to know, because if they say, file shares, then I want to look somewhere else. And it's happened.
and really, if you're just making a job offer, a job hiring post, make sure you're going through everything that the person would go in their day-to-day and check that it's actually listed on the job posting. Because if you suddenly forgot that they need to know Unity, or that they need to know Git, or that if you have any other proprietary software that you might be using that has some purpose for that person's work, you probably want them to be able to show experience with it.
Oh, I didn't mean to full screen that. So I was going to ask you guys, are you up to maybe review some CVs, resumes next week? I'd let people maybe submit some, and then we could take a look at them and just give a little bit of feedback on things that we think could be improved. I set up a form real quick in case you were, and I showed it here, and I figured I would ask you guys before I tell everybody where the link is for it.
Just as a reminder to remove your personal information if you don't want to broadcast.
Oh,
like
yeah. I
phone
guess
number,
if you
email,
want your
address,
name and all that stuff secret, just anonymize, or I don't know. We'll figure it out.
You should, yeah.
But I dropped the link in chat, and I'll put it into the description so anybody that watches later can come back through and enter too, and just submit it. Submit your CVs.
Oh, and here's a tip in the meantime. If you have anybody working at your company right now and they do a process that nobody else does, make sure they document it.
The silo effect.
It's called job security if you don't.
It's called job security or screwing the entire company if you don't. I actually have a horror story about that right now.
I think we all do at some stage, guys.
Yeah.
People get hit by buses all the time.
Yeah. They're usually big job offer money buses, though. Those are usually the ones that get happen.
Yeah, but seriously, like, that's one of those things. People often think of that and they kind of see this as just a joke. But I'll give you an example. One place I worked for, their lead back-end guy went in for surgery, didn't come out, and that's it. They're screwed. Like, they've lost the entire person, the only person who knew the entire AWS back-end platform they were doing. And they, like, what do you do there? Like, the one person who knows all of the details about your back-end is gone, So.
I've seen that when it's handled well and when it's handled badly. And both times with IT stuff. And one time it went really bad, and the other time everything was documented because the person was like a hardcore professional IT dude, and in a very similar situation, went into the doctor and didn't come back out, but he had everything documented, and they were able to address it a lot better. But again, most of the time, people don't end up dying. They end up leaving the company. Right? It's usually not quite as tragic. They build the system and then they get an offer somewhere, decide to move, or have an issue with somebody, or for some reason just leave the company short notice, and then there's a quick rush to try to transfer their knowledge to somebody who's already busy doing other stuff and doesn't really have time to pay attention to it, and it becomes a giant mess.
I will admit, once I left a company and my project was handed over to a friend of mine who still worked there, I got a very angry phone call about 4 days later when he finally had to take over that project. And he was complaining about various names of folders and variables and things because it was using a procedural generated tool. And I'd given up on it. I was so annoyed that after like 6 months of working on this asinine generated tool, I just came up with my own naming convention and had shorthand for everything. And so when he got it, it made absolutely no sense. And I was like, yeah, not my problem anymore, bud. I'm sorry.
So seriously though, in our company, we started a process where everything that we do, we make sure that at least 2 people can do it in case somebody goes away without absent leave. And let's just say that even though it works very well right now, I found myself last week with a file from 2016 where we had another employee, and nobody knows how that file got in there. Nobody knows how to update that file, and nobody knows anything about the safety of changing this file ever. And it is a very important file for what I'm trying to do. So that ended up into a Google frenzy and praying that I find a solution, and I have not.
I once worked at a company where the finance department sent me a file in a custom language that was some mix of PHP and other stuff, like multiple languages in one file. And it did some build process that automated stuff coming from one folder to another and sent out various things. And they asked me to they didn't want me to fix it. They wanted me to tell them what it does so they could try to rewrite it in something else. And so I'm reading through it, trying to figure out the imports, the files I don't have references to. And then right somewhere about line 900 and something, there was an automated exception thing, which would send an email to an email address. And I was like, I found an email address. Can we contact this guy? No, he left the company 15 years ago. That's the all I had to work on. So yeah, that shows how long this thing has been sitting there, trucking along and doing something. So yeah.
Well, I pulled up my giveaway thing just to remind everybody that we're going to give away a rider code. And Dave, is yours working? I thought it'd be fun to give away something else too. If so, if not, we can just wait till next week and maybe run. What's that?
I haven't tried sharing it, but we can give it. What do I press?
You push the little screen share button right next to the camera.
Yeah. Seriously, I'm technical. Let me just move these screens around. I've got so many monitors.
Nothing like cleaning up the desktop under stress.
You just share a window, so it won't share your whole screen. Oh, I mean, I guess you could share your whole screen. I just share a window.
No,
makes it a lot easier.
Nobody wants to see us.
For some people, if you try to do the Unity editor, it might try.
Oh, this is a build.
Move with the selection. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so this is Monkeys with Guns. There's a text file sitting next to it that you can't see because I've shared the actual thing. But when you're actually in here, you press on Tournament and it pops up. And this was all designed before I turned up, but we've changed it around a bit so this tournament thing runs. And for those that don't know, Monkeys with Guns is just a very simple little game. And I've got some people here, Nick, Monkey, Bernard, and David. And the game will start and they'll just fire off. And I've turned off the sound because it's quite obtrusive. And the little AI will play out and they'll just do their thing. Killing each other and trying to get guns and blowing each other apart and all the rest of it. So yeah, this runs. I mean, but as I say, I cull between 4, 8, 16 and 32 players on this. And this is a quick little game I knocked up. So don't judge me too hard. There's actually a video on how all the AI and how the game gets put together in Unity on my channel if people are that interested. I don't do a lot of these types of games. I'm usually doing VR and big simulators, etc. But I have a keenness for indie games because I actually owned my own indie game company back in the day and then helped build another indie game company later on. So this is why I do a lot of these indie games on the side.
This one,
Bernard won. Who's Bernard?
I don't know. He's the winner. With Monkeys with Guns, you had initially just reached out to Nick, right, and asked him if he wanted some help.
Yeah, we lived near each other, and we'd got chatting at a meetup, and he showed me Monkeys with Guns, and I missed doing indie games quite badly at the time. I was doing some really big simulator, like motion simulators with virtual reality headsets, etc. And I wanted something on the side just to sort of keep me going, just something that I could just sit down every now and again when I was kind of burnt on the other one and just say, I'm just going to do a little bit of fun. And Monkeys with Guns was super, super fun as a game. So I just went, do you know what? I'll approach him because he's a designer and an artist, a pixel artist. And he'd got to the point where he'd reached the level of code that he just wasn't comfortable coding anymore. I mean, he had classes for every monkey. Like he just copied and pasted classes down and said, there's the color of the monkey there. Because he's not a coder. He's a designer. Right. He'd actually done it was quite impressive for somebody who'd done pixel art and just gone, I'm going to throw this game together. And he had it pretty much working. So then I came to him and I said, look, I build video games, obviously. Would you like me to do it? So I took it on. And then in a couple of weeks, I had his game running like this. Because I had all the art and I could see the game and I just needed to replicate it. So in 2 weeks, I had the game going. About a day later, a bit later on, I spent a day, put the AI into it. And then, there's 4 hours and there's an AI tournament there.
Nice. So it looks cool. I want to see it in action. So I'm going to give you the link to all of the people that entered. Do you want to drop those names into a text file? Just take YouTube names. Here, I think there was one little section of,
Yeah, you have to share it up.
I just dropped it in chat for you, in the private chat. So you should see it. If you want to drop it in, maybe we could run them through real quick, pick a winner. And for the first one, I'm just going to, instead of doing the writer one, because I want to do the writer one next, I'll just give away a hoodie on my website. So whoever... wins, I will email them a code and they can just go redeem whatever hoodie they want that's up there. This one,
you need to give me access.
GameDev one or the other ones. Do you not have access?
Don't have access to that file, so just chuck me off.
Only people added can open. Let's change that. So anyone with the link can now view it. Go ahead, give it another try. That fix it?
Cool.
All right.
Let me.
I'm going to grab these names in a few minutes, and I'm going to drop them into mine and let them battle out too.
Okay, let me get that going, and I'll put those in. You can talk about something.
Cool. I'm going to talk about Salim dropping in here real quick because I just saw him pop up at the bottom. Hello, Salim.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back. I'm great, but there was a game designer question that actually popped up, and I thought when I saw this, I was like, I wish Salim was here so he could answer this. So real quick, there was a question about for entering as a game designer. It says, do you need to start somewhere else like QA? Does working in QA help at all? And I know obviously you don't need to, and I'm sure you got stories about that, but I'm just curious what your thoughts were on this while Dave's doing his other thing.
Well, like you said, you don't need to start anywhere. You just start wherever you get an opportunity. So you just take any opportunity that comes up. But working in QA helped me a bunch. Seeing the games from the standpoint where you're just looking for things that are wrong with them helps you decipher and decouple how some things work, makes you a little curious. Also, it might help you find out what part of game design you want to do. So, yeah, it's a good place to start. I would always recommend, if you don't have direct access, that checking out some QA jobs or something like that is great, because you definitely get to see games from a different point of view.
I don't appreciate this. On the theme of jobs, I go to the bathroom for a second and I come back and I'm already replaced. It's not good.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen plenty of designers just start as a designer too with their job, right? Not come in through some other position.
Yep, absolutely. Also, some places will have apprenticeship. I mean, you can get into a studio and they might have an apprenticeship program or something like that, which you're not an official designer at that point, but you're just working extra hours to actually work directly with developers. So it's not more pay, but it's an opportunity depending on how they work their system. So it's just good if you can't get in directly, get in some way. I started in customer service. I went to QA, all kinds of goofy stuff. But on the way there, I also made a lot of friends, and I used to talk to developers a lot, just hanging out outside, smoking or something like that. So there's opportunities everywhere. It's just like if you can get your foot in the door, regardless of what it is, you shouldn't view any job as below you or anything like that. There's always something you can learn from doing stuff in the industry. So you should take those opportunities and then work on stuff on the side. If you certainly nowadays, because there's so much stuff you can do on the side. So I'd say get in where you can.
That was my experience. I started in QA too. I made friends with Salim. You're one of the first friends I made.
One thing I do want to bring up is that if you start from a QA or a beta testing position for applications or games, and you show that you know what should be the proper quality for that product, don't be a jerk about it. And if you have the skills, then give the recommendations on what would be ideal here in your opinion. Yep. Because this is where you get to shine and show, hey, if he actually got the job, he could do this for us full time, and we won't have to worry about it doing the work he can do for him.
I'd broaden that further, and I would say be very, very careful joining any team, seeing the way they're doing things, and immediately making a suggestion. I do probably the thing I do the most is consulting. Is I get dropped in with some company somewhere, and they're like, "How do you improve this stuff?" So even though it's literally my job to suggest improvements, I still say, "Give me a week. Let me see how you do things first," because it's a very common mistake that even if you know you're right, even if you know that there's some systems that are more performant, things don't happen by accident. Things got that way for a reason, and you'll be able to give better advice if you understand the reasoning why. And some of it might just be certain people have never done certain things before or don't have the skills. And if you try to be too smart for your own good, like saying everyone should instantly use Git, here's how you set it up correctly and all that, you might be dealing with people who've never done anything like that before, and it'll be such a hard barrier to get everyone on board at the same time that you'll spend weeks wasting your time and theirs in a system that won't work. But if you were smart about it, you can do things like divide and conquer and approach it from maybe we use Collab for the art team and use Git for the programming team or whatever. Either way, my point is it won't always be as clean cut as you think. And sometimes you'll be wrong, not because your technical skill is worse. You might actually know better technically, but you don't know the domain. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see is that when you're working with somebody and it's slightly off your domain, you can often give advice which is quite frankly asinine because it comes from the wrong perspective. I've seen this in things like accounting where people are like, oh, you should do it this way, it's more efficient. It's like, it's more efficient for you as a programmer. It is not more efficient for their workflow and what needs to happen with their accounts and the way they do things. So don't go in guns blazing with whatever knowledge you think you have. Try to understand why it's the way it is, and then try to figure out ways to optimize within the bounds of what they're doing.
Oh, somebody has a passive noise. Huh? Yeah. Okay. So one more thing. One more thing about giving advice. It's not just about how to do the work better for the people working. It's also when somebody is making something, let's say in the domain of games, there's content and there's menus and there's balance, and you come in as a QA person and trying to say, well, this fight is unbalanced, you should do X, and this might not align with what the developers intend. You can give your assessment of what is wrong, but don't try to say this is the right solution, any other solution is invalid, because you're essentially just testing it from not the insider perspective. You don't know what is the full intent, and even if it looks wrong, the solution you're suggesting might actually not give the desired outcome.
Yeah, I can give two examples of this, one in programming and one not. The first one is this was a game-changing moment for me. This is it massively changed my perspective. I was a kid in Ireland, and I used to work in bars. So I used to collect glasses and fill shelves and all that stuff. And my family has run and owned bars for years. So I have a fairly long history of cleaning bars and doing that kind of stuff. And when I started, one of the major tasks you get is stocking shelves. So you go all the way down to the back room, you grab the cases of beer, you bring them up, and you stack the shelves. And at one stage, I was working in a different bar, and I was trying to fill the shelves, and I noticed there's two sets of the same drink. There was like 5 rows here and then 5 rows over on the other side. And I was like, well, that's stupid. They should be together, right? All the stuff, the one thing should be together. And me, thinking I know better, put all of the stuff together in one pile. And then I was called over and said, why'd you do that? I said, well, because it makes sense. It obviously is more efficient to put all of the stuff that's the same stuff together. And they said, do you know why we do it that way? Because when the bar gets busy, we have two bartenders, and two bartenders are serving different drinks, and they're both going to need separate sets of things without crossing over each other. And there are two tills, so there should be two sets of the drinks. And so me, in my arrogance, thought I knew better than people who'd been doing it for years. And that really changed my perspective every time I try to give advice from my perspective relative to what I don't know the full case. And then when I saw someone else do this, was somebody was working on a VR application, and they were saying, we have data analytics. We can show big data grids and data representations and all this stuff in 3D. We have extra axes to play with. It's obviously better to work with grids and data in VR. And they said, let's build an app that we can sell to accountants to make their life easier. And I said, are you an accountant? They said, no. Do you know any accountants? No. So you think you're going to be able to teach them how to do their job better through VR without knowing the problem domain you're in? And I could tell from day one that the first thing they're going to hit is they're going to hit people going, they're not there to have fun, they're there to do spreadsheets. And someone who's been learning, using, and training with spreadsheets for the last 10 years is not going to be more efficient using visuals. That's not who that target market is. And so a lot of this hubris can come from not understanding domain that you're going into.
So my take from that story, the most important part was you saying you were a kid. Is it that there was a
One
point when
stage.
you were young?
Long
That
time ago.
happened? And my kids are always surprised by that. The idea that somebody used to be a kid.
One day I'll grow a beard like all of you, and I'll join the ranks.
Oh, wow.
Just pull the hair over.
Detachable
Still
beard.
done.
So Dave, I pulled up your monkeys with guns. Do you already have the people set up in
names
there?
are in.
So I think for this one, we're going to do a quick giveaway, run through it, and we're just going to give away a hoodie to whoever wins. So we got the YouTube names, right? Not the emails, I assume. I assume that's what you put in there.
Yeah.
Don't
Just
check
like,
it.
hang on, did I?
I don't want to spam everybody's emails up there. Not that anybody would pay attention or notice, but okay, you want to put it up to however many you think is good?
Yeah, we're gonna run 8.
That...
We're gonna run 8 because I wanted to run the bigger ones on Nick's channel later on the week. So let's try with 8 now, and it will cull a load of people off. Sorry, you'll just get culled.
So only 8 of you will actually be in the tournament. Round 1, you'll randomly get eliminated. The 8 semifinalists will battle. All right, you're all in, but let's see who the semifinalist is that wins the hoodie. Kind of run through. I kind of just want to see this.
Prepare the Alt F4.
So we've
this
got
is a really hacky app at the moment. So I'm
Melissa, Felix, Brave, Michael, Jonas.
Jonas is in there.
So many names. I feel like I need name health bars on the side so I can keep track. Who's gonna win?
Hopefully someone pink.
I don't know. There's a lot
I've got to
of
put more colors in.
There's only one pink. Or no, it's 2 pinks, right?
I think there's 2.
pinks.
There's Michael.
Yeah, it's 2 pinks.
Oh,
yeah.
it's down the
They
front.
eliminated each other.
There's no pinks.
Black's
It's like
just
a
hiding off on
blue.
the side. Blue's coming
Who's
in.
this white one in there? It's full health.
Oh, here comes the the spikes. So Bavel 2222.
All right, let me add them to my list of winners real quick. So Bavel 2222. Cool. All right, and then I think we'll jump over, and I want to set up this one real quick and let people win in here as well. So we've got all of our entries, and I paste them in. So did you? I don't know who saw this, But if you guys didn't see it, I'll show you really quickly. I set mine up with some really terrible code, but I made it like in the middle of the night in bed, and I was on my laptop. This was something interesting too. I noticed that when I code with Visual Studio on my laptop, the code quality is much worse because it's more effort to clean it. Like it's more effort to get it the way that I want it and move it into the right position. So I just skip it and say I'll do it later when I'm in Writer. I totally noticed that was happening. And when I'm on a real keyboard, not on a little laptop keyboard with the touchpad. So
well, that's me in Unity versus just not in Unity at all, right? When I write C# class libraries, my code is 10 times better than when I write it in Unity because I'm willing to cut more corners.
yeah, for me, it's when I'm on the laptop, I will cut a lot of corners. So you can see I've got a ridiculous number of fields here in UI. So I did put the players here somewhere in the middle of the file as a big serialized field that I could just paste into. And then it fills in just an array of names. So I've got one blank player. Let's go delete out blank.
And hey, at least you can put time in and then polish it live and see. Let's see people see how your workflow is refactoring this.
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm going to go through and just refactor this whole thing and show people how to kind of clean it up and split it to make it into like a 4-on-4 battle or something. But I'm going to save this off and maybe just get it started, show everybody how it works, and then I'll leave it running in a window and we can let people battle while we talk and figure out who's the actual winner. So I'll hit. Oh, should I hit play yet? I think so. Make sure I've got all my settings right. Attack delay goes to 1 second, so it'll delay 1 second between fights. And the way that it works is I just grab all of the players, split them into 2 queues, put them on a left queue and a right queue, make them battle for 10 seconds. And then if they win, they go to whichever line has the least players in it. So they go to whichever queue is the least. Sunny
Shader
one,
Nick got destroyed.
Somebody just got knocked right out. Now. Bam! Now Nikita wins. So and the combat is simple. They just roll 1 to 100, and whoever rolls the higher number wins. The fight wins the round and does damage. But if they roll 90 or greater, they do a critical and do 30 damage instead of 10. So just every second they roll. Whoever gets a higher number is the damager. I wanted to keep it kind of interactive and somewhat simple. So I guess we'll just let it run and see who wins. Everybody can. Oh, they can't see their names, so that's going to be so sad. It's going to be too small.
After you clean it up, are you going to sell it on the asset store?
Yes, for $1 million.
Do it.
No, I think after I clean it up, I'll actually probably just make it available free. I'm going to put the code up. So what I'm going to do is get the code up available to everybody who's a member pretty soon, probably tomorrow. It's one of the next things I want to do. And then do the refactor and then make it available for everybody. So that anybody who wants to just kind of play around and do a giveaway or just see how to build it, because it's kind of a non-game application. Anybody that wants to do that can just use it as a learning experience or share it or whatever. The problem that I have, though, is that the art I can't just redistribute. So I can redistribute the code and everything else, but for the art, I need to find something else to drop in there if I want to actually give out that part.
Just take in post-processing, everything will be all right.
Yeah. Oh. So I think I've hit kind of all the key things that I really wanted to talk about today, but there were some other things that I think you guys had that you wanted to mention and some deals that I know we missed that you or I had brought up, and I'm sure you guys probably have found a couple others. So is there anything that you guys want to jump into first? Any special deals or other important things that we should talk about?
So there is one that I am... Oh, okay. Let's go with Dave's thing first.
No, you don't have to. I'm just posting them up. So they're ready.
Okay. So there is one thing that I wanted to mention last week, but I wasn't around because I was working on the Terraria update hotfix. And it is the Animancer asset on the Unity Asset Store. I'm mainly bringing this up here because as programmers, I think there is a bias against using Unity's animator controllers. Would any of you agree that sometimes it's a hindrance to work with if the state machine ever gets big?
Yes, if it gets
the red
big, it can
hell.
be a problem. I've seen some state
Yeah.
machines that get out of control, for sure.
Yeah.
But
So
in most
Animancer,
projects that I work on, that's not the case, I would say. But maybe
Yeah.
1 out of 5, they get, really bad.
So Unity in general has been making strides in updating how they work on these things, but to put it bluntly, there are currently a few problems that they won't be able to solve using the current animator, and they are mainly related to how animations get loaded in with memory. Because if you have an animator controller and it has animations, all the animations have to be loaded in order for it to work. So if it has like 500 states, your character suddenly needs to load 2 gigabytes of memory of the animations just to play its thing. And the other thing is, as they get bigger, it gets harder to maintain the flow and control like what's actually going on. I just want to play one attack. What thing happens there?
When are you guys gonna pop that up real quick and just give a visual too?
This is pretty cool.
My screen cannot screen share right now. Problem. But basically, what I want to bring up in this was Animancer uses the new Unity Playables API, and what it does is it lets you play any animation state using a direct code call to the animation clip. And because it works on Playables, you can load and unload animations from it very easily. So you do no longer pay the memory cost of doing things ahead of time, and you can install and uninstall animations on a character. So you can like say, I have this new weapon, it installs the animation. Players don't really care about that, but if you're running on a really tight memory budget, this matters. And in general, I fell in love with this as soon as I saw it, and I tried it out, and I am never going back to animator controllers again. As soon as I have anything that needs that and more than 3 animations, I usually install this asset automatically and start using it. So personally, very biased towards it, and I think my bias is completely justified. I did all my research. I work with the internals. I tried to make PRs to the Unity timeline and playables related content. I'm saying it's worth it, in my opinion.
I'm gonna have to try it out because you've kind of, I don't know, I think talked me into it. It seems like I need to try it and see. It's like one of those things, just like Ryder, where I resisted it too long. I want to make sure I don't resist this thing too long. I'm gonna give it a shot.
So here's a relatively normal example. You have a character, and let's say it's a swordsman. It's an action game. He can jump. He can attack. It Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Link, the classics. You want to move, so you have to start making animator parameters, right? You have to the move X, move Y, so you can make him do his strafing left, right, forward, etc. And then you want him to jump, so you have in air and intentionally jumped instead of just falling, because you don't want him to play the jump animation when he falls, etc., etc. Those things start racking up, and instead of calling things directly in code and having a bazillion parameters that you don't know, oh wait, what is this one using? Why am I not transitioning to the right thing? In Animancer, you only have the thing that you called, and you put the parameters, whatever you want, directly from your code straight into it. So there is no shared parameter hacking that tends to happen as soon as you have a bunch of parameters. Because here's an example from Terraria that's pretty close to my heart. In Terraria, we have 600 NPCs, almost 1,000 projectiles in the game. And all of them use exactly one thing, and it's called AI. And this AI is just an array of floats. 2 floats for a projectile, 4 floats for an NPC. This is synced, but this is all we have for the AI of the enemy or the projectile, which means all the bosses run on 4 floats in order to do whatever they do. All the NPCs with their town walking and sitting on chairs at night and all that, it's just running on 4 floats. And it is hell to understand what is what across methods. Because people have to share the real estate of parameters. And I've seen this happen in some scripts on public repositories in Unity where like somebody makes like move X and they suddenly use it for movement and dashing, and for some reason an attack, if it should do an attack that's a variation 1, 2, or 3, and I'm like, this is abuse, and this tends to happen because people don't want to deal with making new things. So avoid having that.
Nice. Well, yeah, I'm
I have a
gonna
question.
give it a shot.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it comes to stuff like Animancer Pro, which looks super awesome, if someone gets into Unity and they only use Animancer Pro, but then they end up in a situation where they can't use it, are they going to be at a disadvantage when they have to use the native animation stuff from Unity without the assistance? Are they screwing themselves if they don't kind of know both pretty well, or?
So they're essentially independent, but you should start with the Unity basic one just so you understand the basics of animation and how to work with it with a game engine. And Animator is more visual, so you'll see what is actually going on. And part of the ease of Animator is that it shows you what is going as it happens because it's a visual state machine, essentially. And it just lets you animate all the specific things, but it is very constrained to just the object that you're working with and just the things that it was originally made with, because you cannot expand it, you cannot add new capacities, and it requires everything to be ready-made. Now, you don't care about that if you're not a programmer, but it's a requirement that you need to know about if you work in tight budgets.
Gotcha.
Tight memory
I would
budgets.
definitely consider it a weakness if you didn't have any Mechanim animator experience. You would want that. It'd be like it's kind of something with the better version of it without ever using the thing that you need to replace and understanding having the reason to
understanding why the thing is better.
Yeah, why it's better for what scenarios and what scenarios it might not be better in. And realistically, maybe like 1 out of 10 jobs that you get hired for is going to be using something different as their default. Then they may be using this, they may be using something else. When you get the skills of using these things, you kind of like get to bring them into a lot of places too. So you might be able to be the one that presents it as the opportunity to solve some of the problems that you're running into.
And in the end of the day, it's not like it's a must-have, because there are still places where you'll use the regular animator if you don't need the complexity of these things. For example, if you're just animating a light so it flickers a bit or does this, when you click a switch, the light turns on, you don't need all the fancy things around it. So everything has its purpose, but don't abuse that purpose. I do have more assets that we can go through, or do we want to go through Dave's thing?
I think
the assets in the asset store for now, and then go to the hardware stuff afterwards.
That works. Yeah, we can do both. We can hit up assets and hardware stuff. Maybe even go back and forth. Dave, can you screen share some more though? Because I can't screen share another window while we've got this going, and we've got 24 fighters remaining for the writer key.
Okay, well, I'll do some hardware assets then. So I've got them up on the screen share.
All right, you've got one of my favorites, the Elgato Keylight.
Yeah, so the Elgato Keylight is $50 off at the moment.
I've got 2 of them on me right now. There's one there. There's one right there. So you bang.
I've got one above me right
there
now.
on me.
Yeah, so
I use them as my normal lights now too. By the way, like they're
same.
so appealing and pleasing that I don't want.
They're nice and
light bulbs.
diffuse. Yeah. The only problem I have is the one on the right tends to be slightly above the monitor, and so depending on what I'm doing, it can be a bit harsh for the light. So I have to switch to the more oranger modes to make it, a bit warmer. But yeah, they're good. I do use them all of the time as well.
Yeah, and I link mine with my Stream Deck as well. So I've got my Stream Deck.
That's what I'm doing right here. Big
all
Stream
the
Deck
functionality. Yeah,
I forget ever.
Is that why you guys look so good on stream? Because of that light?
That's part of it.
It helps a lot.
Wow.
It really does
Genetics
make a big difference.
Genetics. Is there a genetics light that I can get?
Oh, you don't have the genetics.
You can get that from your parents?
No.
I'll trade your beard for one.
Yeah, I was going to say that. At least you got the beard light on. So that's the
I definitely think that's a trick. If ever worried about your face on camera, just hide half of it. That gets a good starting point.
Get a nice beard, and then worry about how grey you're going. Great. So that's the Elgato Keylight. Another thing, I have an SSD NAS drive in my studio, and I use Western Digital Reds, and they're 23%.
What NAS are you using, by the way?
I use a Synology, the small one. I wanted to use. I cannot remember for the life of me which one it is, but I can look it up in a bit. But I wanted to have something super, super quiet because I had a NAS drive that was full drives before, and it would just sit there, and there was a whirring on the disk every now and again, and it really irritated me. So I wanted something super quiet. SSDs. Also, I have all my networking equipment mounted to the wall because I'm crazy. If anybody's seen my office or my channel, I am a nutter. So I have everything mounted to the wall. And it's a 6-inch rack that I have mounted on the wall. So I wanted to have a very small NAS drive put on that. So this done the job.
In my case, I'm using a Western Digital MyCloud EX Ultra. That's my
nice. Yeah. I've got a Western Digital one out the back because I had the big one. As I said, that was making noise. Well, just spindle discs, isn't it?
It is like every so often I'll be passing it and it's just like, oh, cool, it's taking off again, right? It isn't quiet, definitely not.
If I had it in the other room, like if I had it in my workshop, then that would be fine. But I wanted it in here because this is a secure room.
Yeah. Mine's under the stairs, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's like it's someone else's problem. So.
Yeah, except this NAS is just up there. So the SSDs are on sale. I don't know if the big ones are on sale, but when Western Digital Reds go on sale, they tend to be a lot of them on sale. Then the only other one is another lighting one, LifeX lights.
One second,
I have a rant about LifeX, by the way. Real frustration.
Sweet.
I have my LifeX lights. They're the big, nice blue ones behind me that I've been using for years now. But I recently upgraded my internet. It's now it's switched bands from the 2.4 to 5. These don't support 5. I can't control them anymore.
2.4. Yeah.
I literally cannot control my lights anymore. That's infuriating.
Oh, your LifeX. Oh, is it the light strips, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so your router doesn't
2.4.
support both bands?
I probably if I go in and mess with it, it probably will. But like, let's just say I was so enamored to get good internet that I haven't touched it since. I don't want to mess with the magic. And so now I know I have to go and solve that problem just to get my lights to work again. It's just annoying.
You should enable that. There are going to be a lot of devices that you run.
Yeah, nearly all the items.
My last one had 2 bands, but like I said, this was someone came in, pressed magic buttons. My internet got literally 30 times faster, and I was just like, cool. I'm never entering that room again. It's working now.
I think the Elgato Keylight works on a 2.4 gigahertz band as well.
No, it's working for me fine.
Loads of my IoT stuff runs on 2.4, and then I have an Orbi mesh network running through the house, so that most of that runs on a 5.
Those are on sale, by the way. Great deals on those.
Oh, what, the Orbi mesh network?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Wi-Fi 6 versions were on sale. Really, like 70% off of what I paid for them.
Well, send the link to that. That's something I'm after interested.
I have 3 of them throughout the house. Yeah, there's the new Pros that are really good. But yeah, I have 3 of those mesh networks. One up in the gym, and then one over just inside the kitchen, and then one in here. And they're awesome.
Yes, I will. Here, I'll drop the link. You probably are out of luck though, Jason, because I don't think you have Costco in Ireland.
We're always out of luck over here.
Yeah, so I dropped the link in chat. I'll put it into the chat for everybody else that wants to see it too. The Orbi.
Yeah, it pops up immediately and says, "Are you an EU citizen?" and then just kicks me out of the site. So that's unlucky.
That is a shame. Well, before we do more deals, I've got 10 contestants left. I want to finish these off just so I can wrap up that screen share real quick. I paused it. Here, let me show the view real quick. So I've got a little pause slider here that adjusts the speed. This was actually just a UI element from one of the things that Andrew recommended that was on sale, that medieval night kit, or medieval UI. Remember you were like, yeah, having a UI is nice when you need it. And I was like, you know what? I could really use a UI, and I just bought one, so it'd be nice right now. And it actually worked out perfect. I'm gonna move them up and just let the last 10 people fight through real quick and see who the winner is, so I can share screens and do a couple more deals. I dropped links for all of the Amazon stuff with Amazon affiliate links into the description as well, so anybody can go check those out if you're curious about the stuff that we shared or are about to share, I guess. Oh, Sunny beat Michael. Who we got left? Just a couple people left. Actually, let me switch to the other view so they can be a little bit bigger. Yeah. What? You guys got other deals though that you're excited about that we can share in just a second?
So most of mine are just Unity assets because I care a lot about using good assets when I'm making projects. So here's one that's very popular, and if you don't use it, you should.
Dynamic bone. I'm gonna drop a link to that in the chat real quick too, and we'll show it on screen in just a second after these last 5 people get knocked out. Bearded Cynic and Melissa. So what is the you want to just explain the dynamic bone asset real quick before we show it?
So anytime you're making animations in Unity, there's this concept of juicing up how your character moves, and sometimes it's about making smooth transitions, but other times it's about making sure things move with the character naturally and physically as it does whatever it's doing. And if you're making any type of 3D game, you'll usually have some armor with some cloth or some tail, and maybe, I don't know, floppy ears for furry characters or wings for a dragon, etc., etc. And if those do not move as your character starts, stops, and whatever else, because the animation didn't have keys for them, dynamic bone is where you're going to get automatic gratification just by adding a component and seeing that it starts moving naturally, physically, beautifully. And it's really going to boost how high a quality your gameplay has, even if you barely add it to like just the small things. It really matters. And some big games already use it. For example, if you dig around in Risk of Rain 2's code, you'll see that it's there. And since you have it up, you can see that the character has this on the tail and I guess the breast, but you get the idea. And it's so easy to use that I didn't believe it was like not a feature in Unity when I first saw it, because Unity only gives you cloth physics and that's it. And the cloth physics are per vertex and have nothing to do with the bone animation, which tends to be cheaper to calculate, by the way, too. So that's that. Just an easy asset to plop in, and if you have the character rigging bones for it, just drop that on any of those. Instant success. Also, it's used a lot in VR chat for all the higher end characters. So there's that.
Yeah, and if you want to research this just as an animation principle, this is one of the 12 Disney principles for animation, and it's called overlapping motion. It's worth looking into just to make things feel better. It's like literally Disney designed their things with this principle in mind. That's how important it can be.
So it looks cool. I'm buying it. And I'm going to pop up our last battlers real quick and let them fight it out. I paused real quick so we could give them just a second to get ready for the fight. Where's the picture? There we go, the full screen one. And I figured we'd just let them go through their actual battle now. So we got...
Wait. Are we taking bets here? Are we taking bets?
We can if you want.
I'm rooting for the lizard.
I mean, all I'm saying is one of the names has beard in it.
Yeah, I'm going.
Like...
They're going for the rat.
I'll vote for the rat as well. Because
all right, let's let them fight. Oh, look at that. Hold on. I'm going to pause it because the rat just took a crit right from the start.
I'm going for the lizard.
Easy to say now.
After.
And the battle begins. Let's see. Here we go.
Oh, hang on. What the hell?
40, 30.
It's almost like it's random.
Oh.
It's almost complete.
Oh, damn.
Rat.
Always bet the underdog.
Right. And the beard is the winner. All right,
this is why you don't change sides.
All All right, so that was for the 1 year writer code. Now I'll email both of the winners sometime later on today or tomorrow with all your codes and stuff. So congratulations, writer's freaking awesome, and thanks again from JetBrains for just letting us give away codes. It's fun and gives me an excuse to write some random code of things fighting for no real reason other than that. That was a lot of fun though. All right. So back to assets. We got any more assets or just cool deals you guys wanted to share?
So there is an asset that's not on a deal right now. There's a very close asset to it that both Jason Story and I use a lot, and I wanted to bring it up because it's useful and convenient. It's called UI Gradient, and it's with another asset by the same maker, Procedural UI Image. Lets you prototype UI very, very quickly. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knows this exists, because if you are making any UI and you're trying to speed things up, this is a very convenient tool for it. You don't need to go to Photoshop, make a specific gradient, make sure the colors are just right. You can just do it all straight in Unity. And it's super nice and clean.
Okay, so create an image, right-click the hierarchy, and hit add a UI gradient effect to it, it looks like, and then you just get a nice gradient on your image automatically.
Yep, and you can customize it as needed, and it supports translucency, so you can have like a black to nothing gradient if you just want to darken a certain area near a new UI pop-in, etc., etc. And
it also has the added advantage that it's procedural, right? So you can mess with it live.
Yeah.
Like if you click the other one, procedural UI image, that one is similar idea, only it lets you choose the rounded edges of an image that you're procedurally generating. And I used that before in the example for this small thing I was testing. So you can see how it lets you have like an image shape that like deforms and changes shape quite nicely.
Okay, I see in the corners. Let's watch a little bit more on this. Oh, neat.
On my end, the screen sharing isn't changing at all.
Yeah,
so
you've got the wrong screen.
Oh!
Yep.
Got the wrong screen share. I'm over here like sharing, looking in the other tab. Just, oh, this is really cool. I love it. All right, so yeah, this is the procedural UI thing. Skip ahead. You can see them generating UI shapes and stuff, modifying it. It looks like you just modify with that free modifier component here.
Pretty much, yeah. You just apply a free modifier and then change it. And then for an example of me using it, like I said, I posted an image where I used it myself to make something.
Let's go pull that up.
That's cool.
Yeah, and because it's procedural, it's going to look right regardless of the zoom level. So if you make assets in Photoshop, they're limited by their pixel rate. So that's another advantage of it being procedural.
Nice. So this is your example, right, Jason?
Yeah, just literally taking the procedural corners, shrinking them, doing some do-tween animation on it, and there you go.
It's very cool. Hey, all right, I got a couple new assets. So I got 3 added to my cart now. Anything else that I'm missing out on and I should grab? Oh, never mind. I
this
already
one,
have a UI image. Can't add it to cart.
So the next one I have is a translucent image, which is essentially just letting you make blurred glass windows and other similar effects. And a lot of games use it because it... How do I start? So when you have UI, there is this common problem that it obfuscates the rest of the game. And sometimes that is desirable, but people don't like being... stopped from the game with boxes crammed in their face. So there's a lot of recent shift in games that you might see that they start having translucent UIs or just gradients or very minimalistic things to the side. And part of it that can help is having a transparent image, but it doesn't look as good because some part of the UI just looks darker or wrong sometimes. And blurring it out helps it feel better and also still not as much in your face. So I found this asset pretty happily solving that problem for me if I want to get a quick, fancy thing. And incidentally, it's also used in Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 uses a lot of Unity assets well.
looks like another good one. Yeah, that's cool. So you can kind of see, for everybody who's curious and trying to figure out what it's doing there. It's transparent, but you can see it's blurring the background. You're getting the color and stuff, but not that whole image there. So it actually looks quite a bit smoother, right?
Yeah,
It's actually a
and
popular enough trend now in UX design circles too. I don't know if people are following it, but everyone's probably heard of skeuomorphism, where you have physical dials and things that look like real stuff. Then there's neumorphism, which is sort of like this melded white using drop shadows to represent different layers of depth. And then there's glassmorphism, which is basically this, where your UI is a series of gradiated frosted glass looks that sort of have transparency and whatever. Personally, not a fan, but I can see why people like it, and it's growing in traction for a lot of different people.
because you mentioned that the thing about shadows, I just wanted to drop in another asset. It's not on sale right now, but there is an asset called True Shadow, which lets you make procedural shadows in a very nice manner, just like the other ones. So it's nice to use it in junction with the rest. It's really nice to stack all these procedural effects together. It's rather addicting. Who needs to open Photoshop these days?
Yeah. Let's get a nice little shadow there.
Yeah. And if we're talking about how things feel, there's a literal asset called feel. And this is actually a very interesting one because...
by the way, on a side note, I'm just laughing because the second video for that shadow asset is literally demonstrating a neumorphic design just to prove the point. It's using that exact principle.
Yeah. So feel is an asset that I didn't actually know about until I watched one of the better Unity guide tutorials about how to prototype better. And the authors of that video essentially mentioned that they're going to release a kit of the things that they use to make their prototype feel better fast, and they use like shared code that they just drop in and make all their prototypes look juicier faster. And this is the pack for it. And it's a lot of really easy components to add that will make things just feel way better. So if you're making a prototype, you don't want to spend a lot of time do tweening things for a millennia because there's a lot to do. You can just drop that in and have a lot of easily made ready solutions that integrate nicely with a lot of what Unity has.
All right, more from my cart.
Yeah.
That looks really cool.
I
was
bought
actually
that and I
thinking
tried
about-
to like it, but I don't know. I just personally, it was too authoritative, as we talked about before. I just like it does a lot of cool stuff, but it's very much like it. Every object now had components specifically to do with animations in this kind of way.
Yeah, makes sense for prototyping, though. I think.
I'd probably use it in a game jam. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it'd be cool.
So the next assets I have are a bit more niche, but if anyone didn't grab Odin yet, Odin is on sale. That's not the niche one.
That's a must-have at this stage. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
You should own Odin.
Yeah, it's just like it's a given these days for most people who try to work with Unity. Beyond that, we have Final IK is also on sale. So if you didn't use Final IK, would any of you like to talk about it, or should I?
It's good.
Yeah, use that one too.
Yeah. So Final IK, for those who don't know, Unity has an IK system, but it's very limited to just humanoid characters and only the 4 main limbs with limited capacity of how much things it does for you. It literally only lets you set a directed position and a hint for where something will resolve its inverse kinematics, and that's it. Final IK lets you expand that to full body IKs and VR and complex things that aren't originally expected to be supported by Unity. And it even has a grounding thing that finds the ground for you and does a proper, I think it was a capsule cast for each feet so that it detects the surface well enough to stand on. So there's a lot of like really nice little details that it just gives you to have better grounded characters in your world with inverse kinematics. And if you need to touch tools, it can also do that for you.
This is one
I
I've
do
had
want to,
forever. Been using this thing for like 5 years, I think, at least
Mm.
since I started using
Yeah.
Unity. It was one of the first ones that I grabbed, one of the first assets.
yeah. So I do want to bring up that Unity got its new animation rigging package up lately, but I don't think it's nearly as good as this. So if I had to choose between the two, right now I'll still go for Final IK. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm just going to leave that there. There's that. And next, did any of you actually use this one?
What do we got here?
Shapes.
Oh,
No?
no.
Oh, Freya's one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I bought that and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use that in something, and I never had a chance. I just never got around to it yet. But it's like it's too nice not to own it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I actually watched her make something with it live on the stream, and I was like, I need to use this for anything and everything ever. And I just want to say this is really well made, and it even has an immediate mode, so you can do whatever you need. Now, to explain what this does, it's basically a shape drawer or a line drawer or a circle drawer or whatever you want to call it. But the fact that you cannot easily do this in Unity, and if you ever try to say show an area in a nice way for something, there's a lot of intermediate steps that are not easy and fun to do. Like you either have to make a giant quad and then make a specialized shader to show the area, and etc. etc. This solves all of it for you. You can just call the methods you want and instantly get the shape that you need. And you can do it procedurally, and it looks well regardless of the angle, and there's no weird hacking going on when you don't know what to do. And it even can be a substitute for raycast, not raycast, debug draw line and draw ray and draw sphere, because you can do immediate shape drawing for those.
I'll be
So
honest, that's literally the reason why I picked it up, is because if you ever try to draw gizmo lines in Unity, there's the like 1 pixel wide aliased to hell impossible to see lines, and the only way to avoid that is to use the handles drawing the AA polyline, which is fine, but that requires the editor namespace, and now you're stuck in this problem where you have to use different dependencies. So it's a whole mess, and it's like I just wanted nice clean lines in my debug stuff, and yeah.
So that was shapes, and what else we got? Feel. So the last one I have is just another asset in the same vein of dynamic bone, but this one is magical cloth, which a lot of people will now consider the better dynamic bone, though they don't do exactly the same thing. I just wanted to bring it up because it's on sale. So magical cloth lets you author things for actual cloth physics better than Unity cloth, and optimize some of that for you, so it runs better. And I think it has jobs and ECS support, though I might not be right on that. So it's using Burst at least. Yeah.
Oh, it's really cool. Andrew,
Yeah,
didn't
so,
you have a fur one that you just showed too? Sorry, this reminded me a lot of that you did a video about.
Yes, that was Fluffy. It's not on sale, so it's not a deal right now, but it's still an amazing tool that has such, I think, potential that it's a deal at its normal price.
So
Okay.
somebody is asking if jobs and burst implementation is handy to use, and I'm going to straight up say yes, jobs and burst are good things to have enabled in your project if you have anything that uses them. Because what burst does is it tries to optimize the calls on the level that you don't need to care about in simple code. And if you know what you're doing and you really want to optimize like how a certain line of code runs because it's going to run 10 million times a minute, this is when burst really lets you like take control of how it will compile and run in the end. So if a developer has a burst option, use it if you can. And for jobs, if you're not familiar with the concept, it's basically an easy introduction into threading for you. It's letting you separate a thing that needs to be done into multiple jobs that can run at the same time, and then let them all run, and when they end, you're done. And you can schedule jobs, so if multiple steps need to happen, as long as there is a free thread to be taken, you can use a job to take that and get it done. So if developers use it, let them. And if they don't, it's a shame, but they might not need it. But there is no reason to just say, no, I don't want jobs, I don't want burst or the likes.
So Dave, you just sent me a link, and I'm getting spammed with nice honey ads. Sorry. I don't know why.
That's Steam
Let's
Link.
just zoom out. I think all these little pop-ups are just weird.
So, as a little bit of a change, this is a game that was mentioned in chat. I'd actually mentioned it a few weeks ago, and somebody had picked it up, and they were just talking
picked
about how
this up, and I
addictive it
played
is.
it once and got confused, and I really want you to play it with me so I can understand what the hell I'm doing.
Okay, we'll play it online. So, Dorfromantic, it's just an absolutely chill game. And if you just need to chill out and play a game that doesn't have any real harshness to it, I don't know what the real word for it is, but this game is just very, very relaxing. So it's on sale. It's not on sale for a lot because it's a cheap game anyway, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it looked interesting. Visually, it looked really cool, and I was like, "Oh, this looks fun. I'm gonna grab it." And you said it was really great. So I don't know. We'll have to play it sometime and try it. It's got amazing reviews too. Overwhelming, 97% positive with 10,000.
Yeah, it's doing very, very well. It's a really good game. The developers have done an amazing job, and the music is beautiful. And the way it dynamically changes as you're building out your little land.
It looks really neat. I just need I think a quick intro real quick.
On the opposite, I picked this up. I haven't played it yet, but I was watching a friend playing it, and I had to pick this up. This is the opposite end. Supposedly, this stresses the hell out of everybody. But mini motorways, which again it's a cheap game. It's on discount on Steam at the moment, and everybody I know that's played it loves it. But it's super, super stressful, supposedly.
It looks like it's frantic as hell.
Yeah, pick up each one and then decide which one you want to actually play, whether you need to have more stress in your life or whether you want to have some calmness in your life.
Just play them back to back, right?
Yeah. Play this and then play Dorfromantic to calm yourself down. But I haven't played it yet, but I just picked that up the other day, along with a few other games that are on sale on Steam. And I wanted to pick those ones up because I think the developers have done an amazing job on them.
Yeah, that one looks really cool. Both of them do. And yeah, we'll have to play some.
Yeah, I'll play Dorf.
Get into some. It's always good to play games when you make games, right, Salim?
Oh,
although I'm sure played both of those already because they're video games and he's played every one.
Oh, stop it.
It's my inside harass Salim joke.
I have to fit them into my schedule somewhere in my rotation of games that I'm playing. Which I would have to say that if anyone hasn't checked it out yet, you should definitely play Eastward. If you are a fan of old school Zelda-esque type games, the old school Zelda, not like Breath of the Wild, and you like that old school music and you just love clean, awesome, beautiful gameplay, Eastward is fantastic. But like I said, it's part of rotations. I haven't finished it yet, but the story so far is amazing. And it just like draws you in every time you play it. And of course, if you're a Metroid fan, play Metroid Dread, Age of Empire. Like, oh man, I got so many games I'm playing. I have to open my Switch and I just have to scroll left to right. Oh yeah, Voice of Cards and Dungeon Encounters. I can't say enough about Dungeon Encounters. You just peeled out all of the complex things about games, all the crazy visuals, and just made it very basic. You get to the bottom of a dungeon, turn-based, using the ATB system by the guy who originally developed the ATB system. And he's just been on like he's been hiding in Square somewhere. But he just got rid of all the hoopla and just like he just represents it all as fun. the core fun of video games. It's just a blast. And if I'm not mistaken, I think like a lot of the layout for this is all based on like the Tokyo subway system or something like that. Some like kooky like real life inspiration. But yeah, it's got a lot of depth, but it's just like really simple and fun. So if you like basic old school dungeon crawlers and just want to like kind of get lost in some stuff, it's got good depth. It doesn't like not enough depth to like drive you crazy, but enough that you can just pop in and just have some fun. It's a blast. And Voice of Cards is just really good just because of the whole concept that everything's done through cards, and obviously having the voice is super important, but it's also really basic old school RPG take. But everything is done with all the cards are animated, all the combat is animated through the cards.
That's this one right here.
Yeah, it's surprising how they get how just having a card move up and like slash another card, how well they do it. So you kind of feel that you don't really miss the actual like animated characters or anything like that. So
interesting.
Two great games that are also kind of relaxing. What's that?
It's all just okay. I finally got to the part of the video where they're actually fighting.
But it's like they're both like pretty relaxing games just because it's just you can just take your own go at your own rate. Yeah, a lot of fun. Definitely just pick up, play for like 10-20 minutes and then go something else. So pretty fun. There's some crazy stuff going on there, but yeah, that's just I think like 4
murderous cards
games I've been playing.
Phrase here. Yeah, the shapes library, Jason just pointed it out. Yeah, I think I don't know if anybody's not subscribed to our channel, they probably should just go search for it and subscribe because it's freaking awesome. And like, I be honest, I feel dumb a lot of the time when I watch. I'm like, man, like I don't know anything. She's just freaking smart and learn all kinds of cool math shit and just game development stuff. So go check it out.
Also, currently the best resource for Unity editor stuff. If you don't know anything about editor scripting and you're trying to get started, I mean, not going to lie, it is a bit of a slog, but it's extremely valuable information and it's very dense with valuable information. So if you're trying to do editor stuff for the first time, I would check out that series. Also the shader.
No joke. As soon as we started working on Unity in RealLogic, I told everybody who are going to deal with shaders and editor tooling to just go and watch everything there. I cut it up to the most important parts, but they ended up spending a whole workday just listening to it because it's so valuable to just see it all and it's presented beautifully. So it's really worth the watch.
Definitely good stuff. So, you guys got any other things you wanted to talk about or cover today?
There is one more asset that I didn't know was on sale until a moment ago, but Pathfinding Project Pro A-Star is up on sale.
Pathfinding Pro A-Star? Okay, let's pull that one up.
Yeah.
All right, just pulling our phrase channel. A-Star Pathfinding.
Yeah, I linked it, so.
Oh, you got the link right there, too.
Yes.
I knew Google would find this one.
Yeah. So this asset is
I actually don't have it on this account. So this is one that I've bought multiple times, just always on a company account. Interesting.
Oh. So to those who don't know, Unity has a pathfinding nav mesh solution built in, but that solution has a lot of problems and it's a bit limited in capacity.
And not even all of its features are included. You have to go and find a Git repo to download half the bloody features of their own AI nav mesh. It's stupid. Oh, wow. I hate it. It's not even on their own package manager.
Was it that the terrain or the nav mesh? One of those things started to get integrated in now. I can't remember.
Well, not the nav mesh yet. Last time I checked, it's still not there. If you
want
the
terrain tools, wasn't it?
It might be in the terrain.
If you want to have multiple actor definitions and their own nav meshes, you cannot do it with the inbuilt nav mesh tools. You have to go and download the additional ones, and you can't do it via packages. I hate it. It's very annoying. So I don't use that anymore. I entirely use this one.
Yeah, so if you ever need complex pathfinding, which is not just, hey, run up to the enemy and to the player and start attacking them, this would be probably your go-to. It has a free version, but the paid version has a lot of extra features that you might really want, like a funnel modifier, which says even though the best path is actually... So going back a bit, when we're talking about pathfinding, navmesh would mean that you have you cut the map up into triangles and you try to pathfind on those triangles to find the best path, and you can see that there. But there is also another way, which is agreed pathfinding. They're all just graph traversing in a nutshell, which means you have things go through things in the way that costs you the least amount of steps through the things, no matter what they are. But that least amount of steps solution doesn't always look the prettiest. And the A-Star Pathfinding Project Pro has a lot of modifiers to prettify the paths, which is very valuable if you don't want things to
Yeah,
look
because it's
very
the difference
mechanical.
between something looking like literally like an AI versus looking natural. Because what people don't realize is the optimal path is often dry humping the wall, right? Like if you've seen this in bad RTS games where all the characters seem to walk right to the edge of a wall or something and then just like walk
Slide
along
off.
the wall the entire time. It looks really stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the kind of things that it can provide you solutions for. I do want to bring up, though, if you are giving the player control of a unit there, make sure it does that wall humping, because players care about efficiency and they don't want the prettified path, and they're going to scream at you about how your soldiers are stupid for going the exact predictable road that's straight into the lava lake if you do that.
And there are other solutions. For example, if you have a little small army or a formation of characters, use the efficient pathfinding via A star. But from your animating positions perspective, what you can do is use some sort of steering behavior controls so your characters can move more organically by having slower turn cycles. But that won't affect the gameplay because they get there on time, but visually they will move with a more organic movement, and that'll disguise some of that kind of staticness.
So if you make a RTS game, you have to have a wall humping option, or should that just be default?
That's a good question, actually. Yeah.
You like control click to wall hump. Move. Oh, speaking of, we still need to play some Age of Empires 4 sometime, Salim.
Yeah,
not
I know.
again.
Andrew kicked my
Okay.
ass. I don't know. Did I tell you about
Yeah,
that? We played the one time, his first game,
Yeah.
and he destroyed everybody. Like his first game
Yeah.
on a
I got
PC, and
lucky.
he won.
I was in the bottom corner and next to one other player who didn't do very good. So I wrote it out. I was able to build the wonder, and that was it.
He's playing one-handed the whole
First
time
PC
too. You know,
game.
the rest of us were there.
All I know is you guys have killed my wallet today with all of these deals. Damn it.
Mission completion, huh? We got one more from Uri here, right?
Yeah, so you actually brought this up last week, but I wasn't around, and I suffered from you guys not talking about it much.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh, it's a lightning
so-
deal, too. There's
Holy
only a couple
crap.
left.
yeah, so motion matching is the concept whereby you don't tell the animator what animation to play. You give it parameters, you give it animations. The animations say, I am best at this set of parameters. And the program figures out how to best transition between the animations for you. It finds the best matching keyframes and it goes straight into them based on the available animations. And it's just fantastic if you have a big library of animations for the character to use, because you no longer need the bazillion of transitions, and all your moves are going to look as natural as possible from within your entire library of any pose available there. So it's absolutely fantastic, but it takes a lot of work to set up. So be warned.
That's what
Just
I was
wanted
going to
to
ask.
bring it up.
What's the setup like in this?
It warns
So-
that you need to know coding, which implies to me that it's pretty tall.
So as I explained, you give it parameters and you say, this is where I am looking for, this is the best way, this is what I want most for an animation to play. and then all the animations have to look at it and say, well, I have the best parameters, I'm going up, I am the animation that will be transitioned into. So you have to feed the parameters into something to play that, and then there needs to be an animation that matches this criteria. And I think you can force some animations, but I didn't look into it yet.
So does it come with like some pre-built, like the basic ones for some movement where you could just slot in your animations and use that as a starting point, or do you have to kind of go through and build that whole thing the first time yourself? I assume it's got some example in there, right?
It does contain a free locomotion set of mocap data, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think it has some strafing, but that's where it about ends. There is a big blessing, though, that most Unity animation packages have way too many animations that you'll never use, and this will actually let you start using them. If you have the mental capacity to go and start giving parameters to all of them. It also goes into a very fun programming topic of predictive movement and knowing where your character will be a few frames from now, so you can tell the thing, hey, you're about to bump into a wall, put your hand forward so you crash into it nicely. That's something probably fun to talk about later.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Just the predicting, and I guess a lot of people just don't do any of that until you get into the much bigger AAA, more cinematic titles. A lot of people just don't even think about those types of things. It's nice that you can do a lot of it with assets now. It's freaking cool. I'm going to try this motion matching one, but I want to try the other one first. So this is on my longer list of things to play with.
Animancer is traditional animations, but done better. Motion matching is new technology of animations just given to you from an asset seller. There is a Unity solution that's in the preview right now that's called Kinematica, but I wouldn't recommend it in its current state. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, let's see. Christian mentioned that there's a GDC talk about motion matching that might be worth watching too. Check that out.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and there's also a recent blog post from Ubisoft about how they made AI do stepping on variable terrain, which is really nice. Let me see if I can look it up real quick.
Well, any other game dev news going on, guys? Other stuff that people should know about for the week? I don't want to cut us too short, but
well, the only thing I can say is it after a relatively long hiatus, and I always hate putting the hiatus in the video themselves. I did put out another video, so my channel has one more new video on it, and I'm currently working on the next one. So there's the first news I've had in a while.
All right, well, let's pull that up in just a second. First, you got this link URI. What was this?
So about Ubisoft's AI to predict realistic object physics, and it's a really neat
that
discussion.
looks great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and if you open their post, they have a lot more details about it and explaining how to do their simulation, and it's really fun and complex to understand. And I love eating up those talks and seeing GC materials related to it. People mentioned the motion matching. There's a lot about that, and a non-insignificant amount comes from Ubisoft because they do a lot of looking into it. It's all fantastic, and I'd have loved the opportunity to work with this if I had a chance.
Interesting. I'm going to talk to my buddy up there and see if he's doing any of this stuff. I'll reach out to him later. This looks really cool. I'm saving this one off. So I dropped the link for that in the chat, or I dropped the Twitter one. Let me drop the actual link just directly to the article.
And actually, so the creator of Final K has another asset that is actually very relevant to this one, and it's called Puppet Master, and it's also on sale. So we can probably look into that.
Puppet Master is great as well.
Mm-hmm. That's another one I've had for a long time. Let's pull it up. Some of the first ones I remember.
We've used that in VR projects in the past too.
A-Star.
So you guys talk about it this time.
Oh, I'm not going to talk.
Oh, mostly it was just we used it for a little VR shooter where you add forces to different limbs and then knock them back and ragdolled and whatever. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I just use it for ragdolling too. Launching characters whenever a character would die. I think the first time was like character dies, we want to do an explosion and they go flying. And I was like, hey, for $50, because I think this is before the price had gone up. You get this package and it'll do it really cool and look a lot better than our hacky implementation, and dropped it in and it was awesome. So started using it ever since that, and Final IK. I think I ended up getting them both kind of right around, probably in the same week, and using them, and then using them a lot more in VR stuff, especially. It's a lot of fun. But
yeah, so there's another old GIF. I think that's like somewhere in the realm of 10 years old or something. Back when we first played with Puppet Master in Unity for VR, back with the first dev kit.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was, yeah. You'll see once I actually shoot the guy, he kind of knocks back in this nice way, but from a
Where are the bullet trees?
Well, the 10 years in the making. We'll get there. We'll get some bullet trees.
Dude, that gun is hilarious.
You can see it's because that's back when it was literally the Vive
wow.
wand, right? Because you can see it's actually it's the Vive like original wand shape from the DK1. That's how old that is.
That's cool.
Back when Unity was still Unity 5.
And back when you didn't need 50 accounts to use a VR headset.
So I pulled up your Ko-fi page. This is where people can get quicker access to your videos, right, Jason?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'll be hopefully posting them there earlier in when I remember to. And so I did a quick video that just describes what compiling actually does. When that bar pops up, what is actually happening behind the scenes. And there's a couple more follow-ups I'm going to do, because I frequently have said I don't write most of my Unity code in Unity, and people often say, okay, cool, but what the hell does that mean? And so this is what that means. And over the next couple of videos, I'll show you my workflow, which uses customized MS build pipeline stuff and a few other things.
Just remember,
you know what I found?
Just remember to
Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that with the timing for this video was actually perfect. I think it popped up. Yeah, it was 5 days ago, and since then I've actually opened up multiple projects, including the one for that battler, and I did the battle one on my laptop. So I opened that up, and I felt like it was 5 minutes before I was able to start actually writing code, opening my new project. It was kind of crazy. I was like, wow, this is nuts. I mean, it is my laptop. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it still felt like it had gotten so big and slow to start up a new project that it was getting a little bit crazy. So this is kind of interesting, a way to speed that process up and make it less of an issue. Though I don't know if that many people actually open up new projects often like I do, because I do it constantly, and you probably do, but my sense is that maybe we're weird. Okay, you're all right. Go ahead. I know you got some insight here.
I have a burning passion for clicking one button in the Unity editor, and it is disable domain reloading. And you need to cover it. Just make sure to do that. So to people who don't...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So to people who don't know, Unity has this thing where every time you change any script or anytime you enter play mode, it tries to completely wipe what's loaded in the code and reload it. And this process is extremely slow, and there is an editor checkbox that says, disable this part, please, I don't need this. And it makes the entire experience 90%, it reduces the duration of this waiting time to 10%. And if you want to go even farther, you can disable scene reloading, which will completely eliminate the time to like 2% of its original one. It's so fast that I never want this unclicked, and I will write all my code so nothing breaks while that happens. And they actually have good documentation for this one feature, and it's just one page, and it's really easy to do. So I'm angry whenever I don't see it used.
I don't really run into a problem once I've got it open, though. I mean, does it make a difference on a new project creation? Because that's the only time that I see this really slow time, is like just creating a new project. Like opening one that's already imported and stuff is relatively fast for me.
So it's not about opening the project the first time. It's about every time you press play, you wait 2 to 5 seconds, and some projects might even wait 10 seconds. This cuts it down to 0 point something seconds. And this is where it really matters. As far as what's different in the code is that when you disable domain reloading, it means whatever is static remains in its state, which means if you run the game one time and the variable is set to 1, well, the next time it's already going to be set to 1. And if that 1 actually did something before it set the 1, it's going to say, well, I don't need to run this again. I'll just not. And suddenly you have different game states for 2 play sessions, and it's bad and weird, and you don't like it. Until you
It's
do.
possible to break your stuff because you're not getting the exact same experience of just reloading and restarting your game, essentially, right? You're in a slightly different one with the static stuff. So you could theoretically do something that would make that be problematic. But in general, if you're not misusing static stuff, you should be okay, right?
Yeah, if you're not using statics, you should be okay. And even if you use statics, Unity gives you a set of attributes to put on your methods that say, as soon as we're starting a gameplay session, call these. And then you can wipe your statics yourself, and there is absolutely no problem. It's 2 lines of code. It's completely worth it.
So that's a good one to point out. I think I've had that in the past where I had projects. It's just been a little while, but I've had projects in the past where it was 10, 15 seconds to start up. It's just like sometimes I get so used to a bunch of small projects where it's just instant, and it's just always that the new project time. But I think that the majority of people are probably more in that mode of working in one project all the time, and it gets bigger and bigger and slower, like you do normal day-to-day stuff. Less so much when you're recording videos.
In my case, again, I just leave Unity open on a second screen. And I actually want it reloading because what happens is whenever I reload my DLL via MS Build, it will export the DLL from that using the post-build steps into Unity. And that will trigger Unity noticing the file changed in the directory and then do rebuilds. And so I can just leave it on the second screen and I can just work away. And Unity will do its own wackiness on regular intervals to keep up to date, but I'm not touching it. I'm just writing my code in Writer, and then whenever I want to, I go over and Control P, which is the shortcut to press play. By the way, again, everybody, stop pressing the little tiny, hard to see triangle, and then then I test my stuff.
Also, Control-Alt-P to pause the gameplay, so you can go frame by frame and find what's going wrong.
That's something I don't use enough of, if I'm honest. I always forget that you can just go frame by frame. That something just never occurs to me. Mostly because I just live in code, but yeah.
I'm doing it all the time because I care about my animation always looking right for photo mode, and I'm going crazy whenever I see frames in games that are just not appealing.
I'm kind of short on things to talk about for the week. I don't know if you guys have anything else.
Want to talk about horror stories and working on different applications?
Also, but if I have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We kind of bounced around a lot, so I'm sure there's got to be some questions.
Yeah, maybe we could just take a couple questions. It seems like an interesting thing to do. We'll just answer a couple questions in chat if anybody's got anything, and slowly start to wind things down. Also, if you want to win the next writer thing, I think what I'm going to do is give people like a full week so they don't have to be here live, and just put up the link. So I'll put it up in the description later. If you watch this now, if you enter, you'll be in the next one too. So if you enter in this one, I'll just combine them both, and we'll take everybody from both of them. So you get an opportunity to win it, and without having to be here live for the people that just watch or listen later. So just click the link, go put in your email and your YouTube name. So let's see. Were there any questions up above that you guys thought were interesting, or you wanted to just quickly address or pop up?
There was somebody who asked way earlier about whether procedural generation is an AI, and I thought it's an interesting question to ask because do you care about the notation of what you need to call it in the end of the day? It's just procedural generation. Do you actually need to say it's an artificial intelligence making the decisions to place this here and that there? Like an intelligence.
I don't know that that's the word I would use, but
yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm different, but it seems like for me, I don't know. it's an algorithm doing it, one that you come up with, but AI seems like you're just kind of fancifying it and making it sound more complex than it is. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, when we speak about intelligence, it's about making decisions based on the information you have, and the organic one is like not knowing anything, getting a ton of parameters, trying random things until it sees what works, and then essentially it's that. So the artificial
It's
one
just
is
if statements all the way down.
yeah, exactly. Which is what your general procedural generation would be, unless you trained it randomly about a ton of data sets that you designed yourself. So it's an AI, I guess.
All right. Dave, you got any insight into making NFT games in Unity?
Oh God.
No.
So it seems like the kind of question that somebody would ask you. Dave, you want to make an NFT company?
Yeah. I've been asked a few times about NFTs in games, and I kind of avoid
I
them
was
like the
gonna
plague.
say, I bet you've probably had multiple offers to start up an NFT company.
Yeah, a few. Yeah, I've had a few. But no.
Let's just say, for me at least, NFT stands for not effing with that, as far as I'm concerned. Not my thing.
There are some there's interesting things happening, but the things that most people see in the public is just I'm not getting involved in, really.
Yeah, I've kind of felt the same way.
I made my money in cryptocurrency and NFT and all that sort of thing way back in the day by building concepts for other people to go and delve and do all their own thing in. And yeah.
Unless you're willing to be super, super steeped in it, my one advice to everybody who cares about NFTs is NFT is the kind of technology that once you've heard about it, you're already too late. It means it's become popular enough that you're now getting on the bandwagon and deciding if you're there. The minute it becomes popular, you've already missed all of the real money that's gone out the door. Now you're just part of the pool of suckers, unless you're going to pay attention and actively speculate trade, which is not something I want to be doing.
Me in 2018 says you're wrong about that. I should have bought more crypto in 2018. That was the mistake we all made by not buying Dogecoin. But I mean, NFTs, however, I don't know.
There is stuff happening in the space, and some of it's going to be really interesting and really play out.
Technology is very cool. Yeah,
the technology is awesome, and trading and all the rest is great. I'm just waiting for it to play out a little bit further, because at the moment I think it's gone the boom. Now it'll go the bust, and then something will come out the other end, and everybody go, "Yeah, it's a really good use for it," and then it will be getting into it. But no, I've been too busy to go with the offers to build stuff for NFT at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. That's something I want to get into, but I have a lot of people ask me about it. There was another question about would having one game completed be enough to get a game dev job? Yeah.
Depends on the game.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's not about the game as much as it's about what it's presenting, because a game can be a falling brick on a steel surface and that's it. And
I mean, having one level of a good game is far better than having 10 games that are all easily copy prototypes, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, again, so this is me going a small rant here. I really don't like questions like this, because honestly, if I was to ask you, whatever your profession or hobby or interest or thing you like is, and someone says, I want to get into that thing, is it better if I do 50 bad ones or one good one? I mean, you know the answer. It's the same for every one of these kinds of questions. It all boils down to the same thing. Prove you can do it. That's the whole point of any of these. It doesn't matter how many or whatever. It's just demonstrate that you can do the thing that you want to do to get into it. Every time. That's always the answer.
There's also a thing to note that one completed game is fine, but one release game is different. Like, released and completed is a different kettle of fish. Like, once you've released the game, the support, the going in after and doing all that something. So sometimes when you see on a job description, they'll say free released games, and there's a reason that they use released there. It's because they want to know that you've gone through that life cycle and that you've done all those things that happen to be with releasing a game and then potentially supporting it afterwards, or just getting through those last builds and the optimization and the bugs that come from the game after being released. So make a note of there is a difference between the two. But as Jason said, if you're building one game, it's better to have something interesting, something there, and really concentrate on a mechanic or something like that, rather than just build 50 levels or something that's Pong.
You could build one level that has a really interesting mechanic and focus on that, and just say, like, this is what I worked on, and people can be more impressed with than a completed game. Because completed game, to your point, is also subjective. What is complete? In my mind, it could be something completely different if it isn't released, and even a release, that's also arguable. So yeah, saying completed doesn't buy you any more currency, because it could just be like the brick dropping from the sky hitting the ground, and you get a score. Like that could be a completed game. So yeah, I think focusing on a particular thing, if it's some new innovative thing or some new design thing you think would be cool, refining that and just presenting it, and showing your process through it, could be great. But also, obviously, like to your point, supporting a released product says a lot for sure. Because you can point to Steam or wherever, and you can see reviews, you can see people's feedback, you can see your interactions with your community, things like that. Because they have points where you've obviously grown in that process, depending on what you did with the game. So that's definitely a huge plus, I would say, as far as trying to get a job. But at that point, hell, you already kind of got a job. It may not be paying well, fortunately.
I would say that if you are talking about the experience of releasing something, there is a lot that goes into it with how you end up reacting to feedback, because this is where I would put the meat of the question into the effort there. If you need to respond to feedback, like people say, this isn't fun, you need to fix this, or this application would be so much better if you also added this one option, and how fast you reacted, how well you reacted, and how well was that received, this is a very good indicator that you've taken effort and
Yep.
Iterated. And this is something that people would want, because unless you are making shovelware where you're just making it, dumping it, and never looking back at it again, this is where it's going to matter. And for example, in Terraria, we have a constant watch as soon as we release an update. On any first comment, whatever is going, if anything sounds even slightly not positive, we go and see, hey, what's up, what's going wrong, etc., and trying to fix it as fast as possible. We had an update that we released a hotfix for 40 minutes after it went up, because of an issue that broke like a very tiny thing. And this is how much we try to make sure things run well. And if people are not up to doing that, I'm not exactly sure how much I'd like to be able to have someone who's not going to put in such an effort to make something run well for everyone, be appealing, because this is the entire point of it. If you change something to feedback, you want it to be appealing to someone, and if you present it to someone, you want it to be appealing too. So make sure you change it to appeal.
Yeah.
Sorry for going rounds about that.
Yeah. There was a question about eye tracking that I have no idea the answer to, and I just wanted to pop it up and see if any of you guys happen to know. They're using eye tracking for a mouse. They can drag and rotate stuff in some games, but it doesn't work in other games. Have you guys used eye tracking systems at all in game dev, or like worked with them at all?
Yeah, I've got a Toby sitting on this machine.
I was going to say, yeah, I've played with the Toby briefly when I was trying to min-max my Overwatch play and track my eye tracking, but other than messing with it a bit, I haven't done anything else. That was back in Toby 3, though. What's that, a 4 or 5? I don't know where they are now.
Latest one, I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys have any insight into why it would work for some things but not others?
I got it from a client, and then I never used it. So I've got to use it. It's on my list with the Deca move and a few other bits of kit that I've been sent, and I still haven't really got into. But yeah.
As far
my
as
guess is
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say my guess is it's one of two things, right? It's either there's an API where it's supported natively, or it's a mouse emulator, depending on the context of what you're doing. So a strong guess would be they either don't support it, or there's some reason why mouse emulation won't work. But I haven't played with it myself from that perspective.
Yeah, so I was about to say something similar, where mouse simulation has a bunch of different implementations, and depending on the one that you're using, the game might not react to it as well and do not take certain events that it expects to by the eye tracking. So that would be the why, probably, if it works on some things and not others, at least.
And there would be hacks to work around it, right? Like there's something, what was it called? Something Pi, the one I used to use back in the day for the Wiimote support. Anyone remember what that was called? This little app that you'd use to take any hardware device and you could write your own little Python script for it.
Oh,
to,
what was that called?
Crap.
Something Pi. I forgot the name of it. Glove Pi? Glove Pi, I think. Pretty sure it's Glove Pi. Either way, there are apps out there. You can take any input device and you can simulate whatever you like, and they'll often have wrappers to support things like taking any I/O and turning it into tracking. So you could probably hack in your eye tracking to something else. It just mightn't be very usable. So.
Well, we had another
Or you could
question
use
for
brain
Yora.
tracking.
Oh
with
yeah,
NextMind.
we still need to do a brain tracking challenge. We got to do that, Dave. I want to make a game where we can battle.
Brain there is one, yeah.
Yeah.
Battle
So
our
we can-
brains.
We'll have
Well,
fun.
we do it on a day
know
where
if
I've
I'm
had sleep.
interested.
It's fine. We can
I
use
don't
the
have pulled that
kids to
thread.
test. So we can just, if we do it over here, I can get all the kids lined up and have them challenge and battle and see who's got the most concentration.
Big brain
Have a
moves.
bunch of toddlers fighting over who can concentrate the best.
But wait, can you fry each other's brains?
I hope so.
All right, cool. It's like
That's gonna
D&D
be that's
Psionic
Dave's
combat.
mod, right? Dave's gonna make it electrocute you if you lose. Just add that in there as
I
part of the mod.
can. I can.
Let's
I
do
mean,
it.
it's not hard.
But you have to-
I've got the probe stuff and everything.
You have to make it an NFT game though, as a part of that. So
No.
You're braver than me. Standing up
Halloween
here
is
already
over. Stop
trying to show you
scaring us.
I had a company send me a wristband that actually electrocuted you, and it was to get you to stop doing
oh
bad
yeah, to
habits.
stop yeah.
I can't remember what the
Saw
company
that.
was
That was a
called.
while ago, though. That was a long time
That was
ago.
ages ago, yeah. And they had a little lightning bolt on it. They found out I was doing an electric chair, and they were like, "Oh, we want to send you this," and they sent me this thing. And every time you do something bad, and you're like, "I feel bad about myself," you press
Yep.
the button on your watch, and
Yeah.
then on this band, and it would basically electrocute you.
Do they have an
The thing
always
is,
on
it's
mode?
all
I can just
voluntary,
leave?
though.
It's like,
It's all
Just give you a
voluntary. So
signal.
why would you ever use it? Like
It's
if
gonna get you
if
a
I have to press
taser.
one to hurt myself, why would I use it?
That's how it works. You have to do it. Yeah, I did it once and then passed it to the wife, and she went, "No, get it away from me! Like, all your gadgets, get it away from me." Yeah.
The trick
Didn't
is
want
to
to
get
shock
your-
herself, huh?
The trick is to get her to wear it, then you have the button.
Yeah. Well, my wife's
okay.
been in a few of my experiments, and she's very cautious about coming into the lab when I've got something up that will shock or zap or throw you around the room or something like that.
You should not close her eyes anymore when you tell her to close her eyes and put her hands out.
In a way that's kind of opposing the whole sales that are going right now. I would say that immediate gratification should sometimes be suppressed for longer benefits, like stopping bad habits. I'm sure we all bought a lot of assets that we're probably never going to use, and I just want to bring up that if you are doing that, maybe consider, can you afford not to do that to yourself and save some money, maybe buy something that's more important to you in the future. Just making sure. There's also somebody... Yeah.
Unless
I
it's
gave you the
Andrew's
idea,
assets, then you should buy them all. If it's Andrew's assets, you should just have them all. It's a Pokemon
Yes,
thing.
That's a
because
given,
you
yeah.
will use those. And really, if you're not using the Infinity PBR assets, then that's the problem you need to fix, rather than the other
You
direction.
should shock yourself for every time that you're not using them.
Yes, and if you're building a battle simulator, and you decide to use something cutesy, that's the problem that you need to address.
You should shock you. I agree. Where's my shocker? Somebody needs to shock me.
Oh, man.
Totally. I was just thinking, Dave should make a mod for the shocker. It scans your asset store check and then looks to see if you bought anything in the last week that you haven't opened and used, and then shocks you for it randomly as your punishment if you want to make them save money. Unless it's an Infinity PBR asset, then it gets exempted.
Maybe not shocking. It doesn't have to be a shocking thing. I built a thing in Sony a while back called Install Monkey. And basically, if people didn't update their versions of Maya and Perforce and would basically not do that on the team, it would scream in a monkish sound at them in the morning to get them to do it. And then they all would go and find this thing and end task and then delete the app and all the rest of it. Well, they didn't know I installed 2. apps on their computer, so the other one would install monkey.
Oh, that's
and
so
then-
satisfying. So many people don't realize you can install an operating system service that will check another one because it automatically runs and will reactivate and install other one. It's so fun. The amount of times I had things work on startup that would mess with people, and every time and not even delete it. If they stop the task and then close the task manager, it'll be rerunning again within about 30 seconds because the monitoring task will reactivate it. So good.
Yeah, I used to have Maya read messages to people. Like they would start up Maya and a message would come up just in Maya because I had the API connections and everything saying you need to go and do this before you get to work.
My brother used to write scripts. He's 6 years older than me, and when I was a kid, I would bump the music way loud because I loved the loud music of like very active things. And he hated it because he was in the room next to me and he was trying to sleep, and I stayed up all night long. So he wrote code on my computer that whenever I bumped the music way up, it would kill my app. The next time, it would bump my volume down. If I tried to bump it up, it would lower it and one less. So every time I tried to bump it, it got worse, and essentially it would mute me.
That is great.
Nice.
The other
I
one
wanna
that's
put
great is
a
on
audio-
startup. On startup, you take a screenshot of the desktop and you set it as a desktop wallpaper and then hide the icons. And so people are infuriated trying to click the icons, but it's
God.
just their background wallpaper.
See, these are all better than a band that shocks you.
Oh,
I don't
they're so
know.
much more infuriating. Oh no, they're so much more infuriating.
I wish we had a
These
band that
people
shocks
are-
you at Sony. I've been shocking people all the time.
What's
Yeah. I used
So,
to just have a sign at the end of my desk that would literally tell people to F off if I was busy and didn't want to talk to
Oh
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
All this
My
automation
accountant-
talk got me wanting to get like an audio sensor from my teenager's room and have it just flip his computer off every time he screams in the middle of the night. I think it would
Well,
be
hey,
great.
perfect example. We talked earlier about the Raspberry Pi stuff going on sale. There you go. You can get a whole slew of sensors and go nuts.
I know. I think
I
it's
could build
time.
that.
It's like another project I don't have time for. Can you help me build
Yeah.
that one, Dave? Just shuts off this whole
Yeah.
room.
Yep. Super simple. We can wire. Just take the power cables that from the power switch on the computer, put the Arduino halfway between it, the reset button, and then every time just have it IoT, like those nano,
Just to do reset
33
on the
IoTs,
computer.
and then you just go boom, reset his computer whenever he annoys you. Yeah, it's easy enough to do. You could probably build that in a couple of hours.
Yeah, I already got the Wi-Fi set up, so you can just tell it to turn off. It's on a separate router with a Wi-Fi a plug. You can tell Google to turn it on and off. It just happened to be my old one that was there. It's like, hey, well, you're on this one, and now I have the ability to tell Google to turn you off.
I missed that about the old Windows commands. Back in college, we used to use the ARP commands to grab a list of all the MAC addresses on the local network. And then because the machines all had the MAC addresses written on the top of the devices, you could figure out whose was whose. And you could do a remote shutdown command and type in a shutdown message. So it was so satisfying. It would come up with a pop-up message on their screen saying, computer shutting down because of your stupid haircut. And there's nothing they can do. They have to wait till it closes and restarts the machine.
Yeah,
Oh.
I remember that. It's called nuking, and we used to do it when we were playing Quake. We used to basically take over the computer center and play Quake across the thing. And they had one guy that if you basically done it to him, he had all the list, and he would nuke you if you beat him.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. Too much security now. You can't get in and just mess with people anymore. Pop up messages. I remember, Salim. You remember James? You met James, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He did. Sorry, this is a different James. I'm thinking. I'll tell you about it later. It's a story. I'm not going to dive into. Yeah, never mind. I'm going to skip this one. I just realized that this is a story that I probably shouldn't tell because it might get somebody in trouble with the law.
I have
One of
heard
my watches handy though. I have two watches that I used to use for a lot of prank stuff. There was something always satisfying about like watches with special gadgets. One of them was the IR watch, which I mentioned before. I basically used to scan infrared codes, and I could go into like supermarkets and stuff. One of the best ones being GameStop would have a whole series of monitors that were all the exact same, so they had one remote to control it.
God.
Beforehand, you can just go nuts. You can up the volume, you can change the channels, you can mess with those. And the only way for them to change it back is to take out a little ladder, climb up and press the button. So you can just completely change it every time. And then the other one I had is I have a watch somewhere back there, which again, not as valuable now, but you can just do denial of service attacks directly from your watch. Like you can scan for local Wi-Fi networks. If it's WEP, you can crack it. Otherwise, you can just basically spam it and send network calls just from a watch. It was very satisfying.
That's hilarious.
There's lots of stories online about people that find printers that haven't been set up properly and are open, and then they start sending messages over the printer, so it makes the printer. So people getting a piece of paper out thinking the printer's gone sentient.
You know what I'm amazed by is how many Bluetooth devices have like no security, and so I just open up Bluetooth if I want to stream. Like half of the neighbors in my neighborhood, I can just cast to at least one of their devices or one of their kids' devices. They just show up in my list, and I'm like, oh, don't want to stream to the neighbor's kid. Like,
Oh, or or do the opposite, which is really fun. Purposely leave your Wi-Fi network open, and then mess with your DNS settings and send them to wherever the hell you want to send them to. It's always very fun.
just open up another Wi-Fi that's open and just always sends them to your page. I'm just gonna make it so they can only go to my YouTube channel.
With the subscribe key on the end of it, so
Free
they always go to the
Wi-Fi.
subscribe bit.
So we got a question down here that's been popped up for a while for Yorai. I don't know if you wanted to answer this one, but I figured you had some time to think about it, which was, what was the biggest challenge regarding optimization that you had to overcome for Terraria? Is this something you want to dive into?
Sure, but I have two things to say. One, thank you for delaying the inevitable. Two, pick a year, because I've been here for 7 years developing, and there's a lot that had to be
Maybe
optimized.
just an
over time.
interesting one. The biggest. It's always hard to determine what's the hardest.
Well, there was one interesting that was dumb, and it was that we had rain in the game, and the rain apparently had this stupid calculation that it was like trying to figure out what angle to fly down from the screen, and it would do an insanely complex calculation for each raindrop, each frame, for the entire duration it was falling. And it would be like we'd have 1,000+ raindrops all on the screen at the same time, and each one of them would run this calculation. So away with that, just extracting that and putting it at the start and not needing to run it ever again. And we instantly got like 3% off our frame times.
Oh, wow.
So that was one stupid thing that we had to optimize. Another one was... Yeah, go ahead.
It's amazing how easily this kind of stuff happens. Like, this is just a small one, but one client came to us because their project wasn't running very well. It was a VR project, and they asked us to help with the frame rate. We opened the project they sent us. Nothing was marked as static. All we did was mark all the geometry as static, and we doubled the frame rate and sent it back to them. That's all we had to do.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah. So over the years in Terraria, we usually had at least one pass of optimizing the lighting for the game, like once a year minimum. One part that was really starting to take its toll was tile rendering, the blocks in the game and all the things. They used to run through a main method, and that main method would run anything that it needed to in like completely immediate mode and just draw the tile at whatever shader it needed, etc., etc. And that's not ideal, and there's still optimizations that we haven't made there that we probably should be making sometime down the line if we keep working on Terraria. It was the last update, I swear to God. Sorry, small trauma here. We last update, even I don't know when's the last one. So I'm just going to get into a bit of a big rant about rendering. But when you render things, you send them to the GPU, and the more information you send in a batchable way, where it's the same texture, so the GPU doesn't need to swap which texture it's using or which mesh it's rendering, so it doesn't need to replace that. The more you do of this kind of batching, the better result you're going to get. And if you're going to render 1,000,000 blocks, and those blocks can be set into 300 different types, you might want to do them in layers such that all those of the same type will render together. And even though it's not the most physically easily discernible way, like if you have a tree, it should always draw behind grass, so or stone or whatever, And then if you have another type of tree, then you want them all to draw to the left. So anything that's on the right is always behind whatever's on the left, etc., etc. Those might be more intuitive to think about, but texture drawing and type drawing it's way more important in that. Mainly, most of our costs always end up on the drawing of blocks and things on the screen. Obviously, we draw a lot of those really small things. But the other thing is iterating over empty arrays, which I think doesn't get enough attention. So naturally, we all know that when you make code, you want it to be mostly event-driven. Nothing needs to run unless something happened for it, right?
Right.
But there are times where you'll pull for state change instead, or like say every update all existing players. And if you use object pooling because you don't want to create new players, you might have a predetermined array of this is how many players I'll ever have. What can happen is you'll be iterating over every player, even if it's not an active, connected, living player. So suddenly you're paying the cost of iterating maybe 2 active players and 253 inactive ones. And that's not
Every
ideal
update,
if you're doing
right?
if you're doing it
Yeah,
every
that's one of
update.
those things that's counterintuitive at first. When you first start doing optimization things, sometimes you'll find a scenario where having 2 collections is far more performant. Like literally duplicating it twice, maybe using a dictionary and a list, or maybe using reduplicating the information but only storing half of it because one of them is like a scratch disk with active stuff versus one being all of them. It's kind of it's worth looking into because it's not intuitive initially how that can be very helpful.
And more importantly, it's a death by 1,000 cuts, because if you have 2 loops that go through all the inactive entries or the entries that are not important, or 3 loops, or in Terraria's case, maybe more than 100 a frame, you might end up with like way degraded performance compared to what you could have had you had an optimized collection to run through. And there may be times where it's like not as convenient because now you have to manage what happens if this size of this collection changes as you iterate on it. But I'd argue the benefits far outweigh the headache that you have to deal with that.
It's also worth thinking about loops. Every single time you see a loop, that's a lot of work. And it's worth stopping. And sometimes you'll notice. Now, sometimes you need to if you're doing multi-pass stuff for processing things. But oftentimes, what people will do and not realize it is they'll iterate something and then do something to every element. Then further down, iterate it all again, do something else to the same element. But those objects have there's no cause and effect there, right? Those two things are separate from each other. And so you can literally just bundle all of the tasks you need done and then do one loop over your 100 or 200 elements and then do all of the things. And it's actually, funnily enough, it would be more performant to store a list of tasks, add the tasks to the list, iterate a large list, and then run the tasks against the list than it would to iterate 4 times or 5 times throughout every element all the time. So it's worth thinking about how much work you're effectively asking the computer to do.
And if we're getting into that, which is micro-optimizing, but there's this concept of cache hit and cache misses. And when you need an object from the memory and that object wasn't readily available on the heap, you have to grab it and then you want to check its fields. But this process alone is where it's going to cost you. So when you generate things, try to generate them together ahead of time so the memory won't be scattered all over the application. So when you try to grab their information, you get it in a chunk altogether and not have to keep missing getting it, then working on it every time. Like there's a whole concept of this, but this is basically what a part of ECS and Burst is all about.
Yeah,
chunking
and
your
entities. Caching in general. Like, just be very careful of calculated fields. It's very, very easy to have something very innocuous, like if you have a health bar and a health has a certain health, current health, and a max health, and a percentage value. You could just have percent be a calculated field that calculates the percentage based on the 2 values. But if the values aren't changing, there's 0 reason for that to be a calculation. Like, on setting the value that's whatever's changed, you can just calculate the percent one time. Again, micro optimization, but again, death of 1,000 cuts, same principle.
Yeah.
Well, there was a
Yeah.
question for Andrew, I think, that I think is perfect for Andrew that I wanted to pop up, if you guys don't mind. And it was about
I don't mind.
assets and revisions and charging for new ones. And it really says, what are your thoughts on asset revisions and charging for new versions and possibly developers milking the project? So think about it, like an asset comes out, you buy it, and then there's a new version of it, and you have to buy that new version of it. What's your general thought on that? Like, do you normally do free updates, free upgrades? Do you recommend that? What do you think is the norm, and what's good and bad?
So I don't make many editor assets. I've got one that I'm working on, but I can see how even with the art assets, whenever a new version comes out of Unity, it could break everything. And that means you have to go back and update everything. And it's not because your asset is bad, it's because Unity changed something and now everything you did has to be redone. So for people who are making editor scripts and extensions, it's probably got to be super stressful every time Unity comes out with a new thing that might break their entire system, and then they have to spend who knows how much time going over and fixing it. So for editor extensions, charging like an annual upgrade, like I think Gaia does this now, Gaia 2022, Gaia 2023, or whatever it's going to be, I think that makes a lot of sense because you're getting value as a user out of it because the developer is keeping it up to date. Now, there's no law that says the developer has to keep something up to date. If it works in 2019 LTS and that's where you bought it, and now you're using 2021 LTS and it doesn't work anymore, what are you going to do? I mean, that's the way you upgrade Windows or Mac OS, and some of your apps might stop working, and they'll say, "Oh, well, you can buy the upgrade." Same reason. So I think it's perfectly fair. I don't think it's developers milking the project. I think it's the fact that, on the asset store, you pay $60 for an amazing asset that saves you hundreds of hours of time, and then you expect that to be free for the rest of your life. I don't think that's completely fair. If you think about the value you get out of it, you're only going to pay that upgrade fee if you're still using the asset. So,
Yeah.
And it'd be a different thing if the asset stopped working until you paid an update fee, right? There's a fundamental difference between having the option to use the version you bought with the version that it supports and a different update. And I think it's really worth highlighting the cost of development. Like, ask yourself, if it costs you an extra 50 to upgrade from whatever you had to whatever it is now, do you think, I'm going to guess on whatever rate the person's charging themselves, do you think it took more than an hour or maybe 2 hours to produce that, what I assume is a month's worth of changes to that project? I think 50 isn't too bad for that,
yeah,
I'd rather
Going-
have something supported.
There
Yeah,
is something I want to say, and the question is loaded because they're asking about possibly developers making the project. Milking is inherently already bad when you ask about it. So it's two different things. But as Jason said,
yeah,
if
this
there
isn't.
are, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say this isn't. We're not talking about publishers who have a bug, and they say, "Oh, well, I fixed the bug that affects every user, and you can't really use it. The asset's not as valuable because of this critical bug. So I fixed it, and now you can pay for an upgrade to get that bug fixed." That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, hey, the asset works great as intended. You get the value in this version. In the next version, I have to spend another month of my time making it work with that new version. And so that you can buy the new version. Now, maybe it's upgrade price. I think that's a great practice. If there's not an upgrade price, well, I think as a customer, and we talked about this with Jason, you said, "Oh, I threw this in. I had this, so I threw it in. It worked great." And so, how much time did you save by having that UI pack? I don't know. You saved half an hour of your
Ridiculous
time.
amount. Hours. I mean, it would, to get that same quality, which it wasn't even that much, it probably would have taken me 2 or 3 hours.
Okay,
Oh.
so 2 or 3 hours of Jason's time is worth how much of the UI pack cost? $10, $20, $30. Clearly, his time is worth more than that cost. So that's where it comes down to. If you're buying something like, Odin or Gaia or Shapes, we talk about these assets that technically can enable new things that you can't do before and save you countless hours. say, okay, well, I'm going to pay $60 for this, or I can do it myself and it's going to take me 3 weeks of my time. Which one's more, or I'm not going to do it at all and my project's just not going to have that functionality that I really want. Which one is worth more? Well, saving all your time is probably worth more in the end. And I get that, from as a customer, you don't want to feel like you bought something and got screwed, but the reality is you're not getting screwed. You're still getting immense value out of it. And you just have to remember that.
But as
Also,
a
again-
consumer, you have to be responsible. You go into it. I bought version 1 of this thing, and then someone releases version 2. I paid for version 1. I should totally understand if I have to pay for version 2. If I go into something that is, it's kind of understood that it's going to get upgrades and updated over time, and I'm paying a base fee, and at some point those updates become not free anymore, then there's a question of why did they become not free? Did that now become, this thing 2.0, and that is now getting future updates, and I'm just going to kind of, get rid of the old one and pay for the new one and get that new service? I think as a consumer, you have to be smart about what you're purchasing and understand straight up like what you are buying, what it is. If you're buying an asset, I understand that as is an asset. If there's any bugs with it, then I expect the person I'm buying it from to fix those bugs. But I don't expect that my $60 includes anything they make in the future that is version 2, 3, 4, 5 of this, unless they've specifically said that is the case. So I think you have to be smart as a person who's spending your money. It's your money, so you should think about what you're spending it on, and just read and understand what you are getting as a consumer.
And I think that word customer is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because I think what people forget is you're not buying like an off-the-shelf product. What you're buying is an asset that you intend to use in a project that you probably intend to make money of or to get a job from. So what a lot of people forget is the asset store isn't toys to play with. I mean, it sometimes feels like that, but they are there to facilitate project development, to sell things. So you are the money you should be thinking about paying is you're not buying something fun to play with. You are buying something that, if it's like contracting, you are paying someone to do work for you. And I implore anybody who has a problem with pricing tiers on any asset on the asset store to pick any asset and try to get it made. Just do some Googling. You don't even have to go too far down this rabbit hole, but just research it. Check Fiverr, check other sources. How much would it cost you to get that thing made for you? And ask yourself if there's ever a time where that number is going to be lower if you go to the asset store, and not lower by orders of magnitude. So you're not just paying for an asset to be made, you're paying for someone to make a thing for you that works on your project. The implication that in most cases there'll be some kind of support to fix bugs you'll have, and if there's an updated feature list, someone has gone and spent months of development adding more features that, they're not doing it for fun. They would move on to a different project if that was the case. So don't think of it as buying products. Think of it as you're making a thing. You could either do it yourself, find someone to do it for you, or you could pay for a more general option, and it'll always be cheaper, regardless of the other two. So put it in context when you're asking questions like that.
All right, well, I want to kind of give everybody a chance to wrap it up with some final thoughts and just kind of go around and see any last things that people want to share, get out there, and make sure everybody is aware of before they start off their week after the holidays, I guess. And I start with Andrew because he's right next to me. I assume Andrew's got a couple of things going on this week that people should know about, and you want to just tell people about, or?
Yeah, I've got a live stream at 12:10 in about 13 minutes ish. I'm nothing too exciting. I don't want to overhype myself. I'm going to be editing a video. I made a quick start video for the game modules, how to get stats and items up and running pretty quick, and I'm just going to be editing that. So if you have checked out the game modules or have questions about it, that is my one editor script, and I just updated it to a new version with a lot of help from Jason Story there. And so if you have any questions about it, how to use it, etc., that stream will be a great time to just talk it out while I edit my own voice video.
Great. We'll drop a link for that too in the chat and description so everybody can go check it out. And then Yorai, you had something interesting to share too and mention, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to bring it up earlier and then I forgot, but recently Valve had a Steam Deck conference in which they talked about how to develop without a deck. And for that, you obviously need some device that matches the specs for it. And given there are sales right now, it might be useful to bring this topic up and what device you're looking for. So in regards to resolution, I think they said the deck is 7 inches across in resolution, like physically, and the resolution is about 1280 by 800. So if you want to check that your UI fits on a product that's released on the deck, planned to work on the deck, this is the resolution you'll care for. So just make sure it works for that. The reason I'm even bringing this up, by the way, is because there's going to be a lot of potential good visibility on the Steam Deck when it releases for Steam Deck verified games. So if you're working on something and you want it up by atomic and you want that Steam Deck verify tag, you want to make sure it works the best it can. So keep those in mind. Make sure the specs work for that. Now, I only mentioned the resolution. There's actually a screen that you can buy for it. There is a Yo-Yo 7-inch small HDMI monitor. So that exists. But the more important thing is the PC, so that you can see, like, here are lower specs. If you have money to dump, it's about $600, but you can get something that kind of works. I think this one should be the closest one to what they showed.
Okay, cool. And we'll pop that down in the chat too. As soon as my mouse starts moving, got stuck. All right, we'll drop it in here, and I'll put that in the description as well, so everybody can go grab that, check it out. And it looks like it's a.
I'm not sure if it's the right one, so make sure to check everything. And it's only relevant if you care about buying the deck before decks are available, because right now it's been delayed 2 months, so we're still waiting until February to even see them going live. But if you're trying to beat the market and develop for the deck before the deck, there you go.
I think it's a good idea because you get in, if you can get it out there as like a launch title that's ready and already tested on the device when it comes out, you get a huge boost out of that. It definitely makes a big difference. So if you've got a game that's close to releasing, it's something worth considering. Like a new platform is almost always a good thing. A new platform that gets supported and doesn't die instantly is always a good thing. That's the way I put it, at least. Cool. Jason, did you have some stuff you want to share?
No, just the fact that I had my last video and the fact that I'll be putting another one out soon. So it's worth subscribing. I have actual content in the pipeline that's coming out soon. Then my YouTube channel, again, for anyone who's interested, is just youtube.com and my name, which is right there. So just type that. There you go.
Jason's story. Yep. So I'll make sure that's linked in the description too, and we'll probably drop that in chat too. And I think everybody should subscribe. And speaking of YouTube channels, Salim, somebody had asked if you had made yours yet. So what's going on there? You got any update?
That's so good not being the person being asked that question.
Gotta be nice, right?
So it's coming, I guess. I would like to say thanks for letting me be on the stream, because it actually helps push me in the direction I need to go, and that's to start working on my own thing. Because, as I've mentioned before, I work a whole lot, but I work on somebody else's stuff, and inspiration kind of comes and goes. But talking with you guys and seeing people ask questions and stuff gets me a little bit hyped and excited. So I'm hoping to, I've already started making a list of things I want in this little project. And I'm hoping to, crack open the Unity again. It's been a while, and start jumping into some stuff. That's why I was saying earlier that my wallet is now like empty after all of these recommendations.
Those asset store stuff.
Yeah, my cart is quite full. But yeah, so, just thanks for letting me be on here. You guys definitely humble me a lot. So I'm hoping to get a YouTube channel up. I think the name is going to be Salim/R after our last talk about it. I was debating whether it'd be Singletons, but but I think that will be it. And hopefully Jason can help me figure out what would be some good content to put on there.
Nice. Well, I'm sure it'll be exciting as soon as it comes out. Everybody will be really happy. People ask every single week whether or not you've made your YouTube channel or not. Anyway. And then Dave, You didn't go yet. Any last thoughts for the
No.
week?
So not really. I mean, I've got some tutorial videos that I did and regret. So if you want to go and see those on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/warpedimagination. They're on there. There's some very, very long ones. There's very, very short ones. And then there's all the stuff I do in VR with turrets and all the stuff where I build engineering around my office with the crazy setup I have. So if people are interested in absolutely crazy battle stations, my whole desk and everything moves up a wall and it's all custom built. So you can go check that out on the
And
channel
you
as
have
well.
a
As well as
turret in the back of your desk. Right
and I
behind
do
you.
have
You've got
a full motion simulator, yes.
If it makes you feel
you had
better,
a
all the
robot.
tutorials are amazing.
Oh,
there-
you're too kind.
Are there any
I'm
videos
gonna
on
do some
using
more.
the Tobii eye tracking? Any videos on that?
No, I've got a lot of hardware that people give me and stuff. I've got a video coming out about Next Mind soon. My friend Vimlark, who I'd done the Monkeys with Guns thing for, he came and dropped the Next Mind on me and said, help. So I've got something coming out on that soon, and I've got the.
Well, if I can make a request, I noticed in one of the videos you were talking about the tooling you were doing, because you were doing some of the editor tooling stuff, and I want more of that. I want to see how other people do Unity editor tooling. I like to steal ideas.
A lot of
Dave
people
has
want the
good
tooling
tooling.
stuff. I used to be a tools programmer for Sony for very, very many years, just like Jason Weimann. Funny enough, that's how it's not how we met. We met and then realised we did the same
That's how
job.
We bonded.
Yeah, you did it in America and I did it in England, and I now live in LA, so it's kind of weird. But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so no, it's all good. It's nice and sunny here. It's horrible back home. But yeah, I'll do some more stuff on tutorials and how to get stuff out to QA quicker and all that sort of thing. Most of my channel is about how I design things for different companies or mechs or kiosks or anything like that. So yeah.
It's just cool, crazy tech stuff that you make. Which is interesting. It's good stuff. Cool. Well, I guess I'll just wrap up by saying thanks to everybody for coming out here, and please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe, and so you can be aware next week. Check the links down in the description below. Got everybody's stuff shared there. At the Black Friday deal for my courses still there, and a bunch of other stuff. And then check out Andrew's. You're over here. It's so weird. One of these days I get this reverse camera thing figured out. But check out Andrew's live stream that's coming up next. I'm going to hang out with Andrew. I assume Jason will probably be hanging out in chat, and I'm going to drop by there for a few too. So I guess we'll see you all there.
I also want to know how I can get one of Jason's hoodies. I've been trying to get a hoodie forever. So
I will.
If one of you guys,
I will get you the information.
Don't worry, he keeps promising to send me stuff too. He never does. It's just.
Check out
I've got one.
I can bring you one, Dave. You're close enough.
I've got one. I've already got a hoodie. You got
what is this?
I've got more. I've got new ones.
Yeah.
I got this one. I got the GameDev hoodie with the binary logo now.
Oh, man.
A couple different cool ones.
You need ones that are less warm. It's too hot in California to wear something.
This one is super warm. I've noticed it. Yeah, I've got a couple light ones and a couple thick ones.
You know, I think I'm just reminded that I have one of your mugs.
Oh, he's got a debugging mug?
Yeah.
Mugs are the best. Debug mugs. The metal ones are even better, though. I'll have to get
you wow.
We got the Topplers using those. They're like their main mugs now. They use my full-time my ultimate GameDev cups. So they just use those as like their main thing they drink out of. It's awesome.
I know what I'm getting for Christmas. I'm getting a GameDev care package.
No, you're gonna get the My Little Pony ones, because now that I realize I can make My Little Pony things too. You get My Little Pony care package, Slane.
Oh my god!
Nice.
All right,
should have gave you a My Little Pony microphone.
I am a brony. That's right.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming out and joining us. Please hit like, hit subscribe, share the stream, even if it's a little bit weird. Appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you again next week.